Hello and welcome everybody to the Harbor Commission March 2026 regular meeting. I'm Adam Stanowik, calling to order this meeting at 6:34 p.m. And let's start off with a roll call, please.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Commissioner Cohen?
Here.
Commissioner Hymas?
Here.
Commissioner McCrae?
Here.
Commissioner Nelson?
Here.
Commissioner Stedman?
Here.
Chair Stanowik?
Here. Thank you. Director Wiltshire, do we have any changes to the agenda this evening?
Yes, Chair. We're going to move item 6, the MPA item, to the first item of new business. It should be a quick one, and so we just want to address that one first.
Great, thanks. So with that being said, we're going to move item number 6 to before number 2 of new business going forward. Okay. We'll start off now to general public comment. I believe we have one speaker slip. We did not have any written public comment that came in. But Mr. Lopez, can you please call up the first speaker for general public comment?
Yes, Steve Worthington.
Thanks for having me.
Excuse me. Would you mind stepping up to the podium and just using the microphone just so everybody can hear and everybody online can hear as well? Great, and you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, thanks for having me. 3 items, and I'll probably run out of time, and I apologize. First one is 30-year plan, which is pretty tough to get online back there. Straightforwardly, I'm seeing bathrooms being temporarily removed. You had 1,000 people telling you just to fix it to ADA compliant. If I read the plan right, you're taking the bathrooms away and putting them up at West Beach. If I look at the plan, maybe I'm wrong, there's a berm there. And maybe a bike path is going to show up. If that happens, that's disingenuous. Straight out BS. I may be wrong, but it sure looks like that. Second one, revenue enhancements from your November list. This town worked for 2.5 years to come to terms with the Environmental Defense Council, Sierra Club, and the public regarding the cruise ships. Generally, people don't like them. We all know we need revenue. We don't need as much as you guys are saying. To have on the revenue list 2 years later, something to bring that back it's just out of hand. I don't know what you guys are doing. I mean, really? And last one, with regards to, quote, bringing things up to market rates, slips, launching, all that. Don't give us BS about comparables to other cities. This is Santa Barbara. The raises should not be any more than the cost of living. You guys moved in the middle of the dark with these average 37.5% increases in 2023. Things are very nice down there. You do not need to be going 3 times inflation. Get it together.
Great, thank you for your comments. Yeah, we value your opinion.
We'll see.
Okay, we have, I believe, no other public speakers.
There are no hands raised and no other slips submitted for general public comment.
Great, thank you. We do have public comments on, I believe, some of the items, so we'll be doing public comment when it comes to those items in the agenda. With that, we can move on to the work group reports. And I believe we do have work groups who do want to speak. Commissioner Nelson on the commercial fishing.
Yeah. I just want to report that at the end of the last meeting, a decision was made by the full commission that we try to craft a letter that expressed our concern about the MPA petitions that are currently before the Fish and Game Commission. Happy to report that the members of the work group met on a number of occasions, many times just by phone, and happy to report that we did achieve consensus and delighted that it's on the agenda as item 6 tonight. Thank you. And if one of the members of the work group wants to say anything, that'd be great.
Great. Is there any other member of the work group want to speak on behalf of any of the meetings? Okay, I think we're good. We'll address those when we get to those on the agenda item then. All right, we can move on to the consent calendar. Item number 1, approval of the consent calendar. Mr. Lopez, can you please read the recommendation for us?
Yes, this is item 1, approval of the minutes. Recommendation that Harbor Commission waive further reading and approve the minutes from the regular meeting of February 19th, 2026.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve item number 1?
So moved.
We have a motion and we have a second. Mr. Lopez, can you please do a vote for us on item number 1, the approval of the minutes?
Yes, and this is a motion by Commissioner McCray, seconded by Vice Chair Stetman. Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Hymas?
Yes.
Commissioner McCray?
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stedman?
Yes.
And Chair Stanwyck.
Yes.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. All right, we can move on to new business, and we're actually going to move on to new business item number 6, the approval of a letter to the California Fish and Game Commission identifying concerns with marine protected areas, impacts to commercial fishing. Mr. Lopez, can you please read that recommendation for us for item number 6 of new business that we're now moving to the top of the new business agenda?
Yes, this is item 6, recommendation that Harbor Commission receive a presentation from the commercial fishermen of Santa Barbara outlining concerns with marine protected area petitions that would establish new fishing closures, review and approve letter drafted by the Commercial Fishing Work Group and Harbor Commission Chair to the California Fish and Game Commission.
Great, thank you. Turn it over to Waterfront.
Chair Stanwyck, Harbor Commission, Mike Wilshire, Waterfront Director. We don't have a formal presentation on this, but what was provided with your packet was a draft letter that was put together by the Commercial Fishing Work Group, which was 3 members of the Harbor Commission. We can get that letter up on here, but I'm hoping that you've all reviewed it in advance. And so what we're looking for is consensus from the Harbor Commission if you would like staff to send that letter to the fishing game.
Great, thanks. We're going to do questions and talk about this. I believe that timing is important for this matter. I think in terms of how this was drafted, we received public comment last meeting. We reviewed the information with the Commercial Fishing Work Group, though thanks to you guys for meeting several times on this and drafting this letter for us. We reviewed the drafted letter with the Waterfront, and we have something that I believe is important that we send to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. So with that, we can move on to public comment, because I think we do have 2 public comments before we go to kind of questions from the commission. But I think the idea is that we are going to decide on if we want to send this letter formally from the Harbor Commission after the meeting.
Chair Stanwyck, I also forgot to mention, we did invite CFSB, Commercial Fishermen of Santa Barbara, to speak on this item. So Mr.
Okay.
Chris Voss is here if he would like to speak on the item.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Why don't we do, would you like to speak now, Mr. Voss, on this item? Yeah, 'cause this is part of the recommendation and part of the presentation.
Great. It won't be long, what I have to say. I know I've made some points at our last meeting, but I'd like to draw attention to the fact that the commercial fishermen of Santa Barbara are not against marine protected areas. We've learned to live around them, and we've, in some cases, benefited from their existence. So in a general sense, we are not opposed to MPAs. That said, the process that has been applied by the Fish and Game Commission has been chaotic and disorganized, and I don't think anybody in the process would disagree. Even the petitioners that are pursuing, the environmental organizations that are pursuing either dramatically increasing existing MPAs or creating entirely new MPAs. So what we are faced as commercial fishermen is a loss of grounds, and I can list now, currently, within the last few weeks, we've been posed with new offshore oil leases. I spent 2 years working with the Coastal Commission on offshore wind's impact on commercial fisheries. We have wave energy projects in state waters proposed. We have aquaculture opportunity areas on the Ventura Flats that will shrink the area that we're able to fish in. So, as a community that's learned to live and work around an award-winning network of marine protected areas, we are anxious about a process that enables just any organization to petition the state to close additional waters that we have access to. So that's the general notion of why we would, in a blanket way, oppose. The Department of Fish and Wildlife, or the Fish and Game Commission, has just approved its fishing community policy that is built into the framework of evaluation that the Department of Fish and Wildlife is supposed to use in evaluating these petitions. Each petition, when it's offered, has to have a justification associated with it. So the petitioner has to describe what environmental issue will be addressed by a given petition. And so when you dive into the details of the science associated with some of these petitions' claims about the benefit that the MPA will create, there's some soft spots in their reasoning that when you overlay the fishing community policy, which requires them also to evaluate the economic impact on, in our case, the Port of Santa Barbara's fishing community, you start to see a situation where the justification for what they're pursuing and the impact on us needs us as community recreational and commercial fishers that would be excluded from this area is significant. And so we're asking this body, and then hopefully the city council at some point, to declare a recognition of the value of our local fishing community and the benefit it brings to the diversity of our local economy. We're food producers, which I believe is an important and valuable thing and we're significant in the dollar value of our activity to our local economy. And so I'm hoping that we can get support in kind of just pushing back on this process because it's not well conceived and it hasn't done an adequate job in engaging with stakeholders in a meaningful way. And right now, just to add to some of the chaotic nature, the department has been working diligently on crafting evaluations of each of the petitions, and of course the ones that have a significant impact on the communities that are in close proximity to these petitions require huge analysis, and they finally produced their recommendations. So the staff at the Department of Fish and Wildlife evaluated these petitions and will produce a recommendation for the Fish and Game Commission to use in their decision-making process. And tomorrow, the less controversial petitions will be presented to all of us. The evaluation that the Department of Fish and Wildlife has generated will be made public, and then we can all understand where the department's staff has fallen on the efficacy of each of the different petitions. And again, there's 15 petitions that are still in the evaluation process. We have, there's 4 in this region that will significantly impact the space that we're allowed to fish in. And it's how those get evaluated. When we see their evaluation, that will either strengthen our ability in an effort to oppose their implementation or not. So that's where it lays. I want to add one more thing to this whole loss of area calculation. The state of California has embraced the 30-30 initiative, which is, I think I mentioned it last time I spoke here. It's a global initiative that is pursuing 30% of the land conserved as well as 30% of ocean areas conserved by 2030, right? It's a global initiative. Well, the global initiative has standards associated for what qualifies for 30-30, and the state of California so far has taken a fairly liberal approach to qualification, and they've taken the 16% of our coastline that's currently in MPAs and allowed that to be 16% qualifying for the 30% goal, and then they've added another 6.5% that is part of the more recent federal sanctuary in the central part of the state. So we're at 22%, and they are pursuing an additional 8% to qualify for 30-30. That's another threat to our grounds to some degree. So I just want to emphasize that we as a community are well managed in the area that's available to us to fish. We are well managed. The feds and the state do a good job. We're sustainably managed, and that needs to be taken into consideration when you contemplate closing additional area for us to fish in. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, Mr. Voss. Okay, do we have any questions regarding Mr. Voss's presentation that we could direct towards the waterfront right now? Okay, then you know what we'll do? We are going to move on to the public comment then, and I believe we have several speaker slips for this, Mr. Lopez.
Yes, Chair Stanhope, we have 2 speaker slips submitted and 1 hand raised online. Do you want to do the speaker slips or the hand raised?
Let's do the hand raise first.
Okay. The hand raised is Asha Hudson.
Okay. Miss.
Hi,
Ash-
can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, and you have 2 minutes for your public comment. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. My name is Asia Hudson, Marine Conservation Analyst and Program Manager with the Environmental Defense Center. We are a public interest law firm that defends nature and advances environmental justice on California's Central Coast through advocacy and legal action. We primarily work in San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. I'm here today to introduce myself and to offer my time to the Commission and staff as one of the petitioners requesting adjustments to the MPA network. Before I begin, I would like to apologize for not reaching out earlier. We were informed that this issue was not under your purview, and therefore we didn't inquire further. We understand that there have been some concerns raised to the Commission and would welcome a conversation regarding our petitions and how we have amended them based on our outreach to the community. We hope to provide the Commission with additional insights on the process that will better inform your decision on Agenda Item 6. To that end, we request that Agenda Item 6 be postponed to allow for communication between petitioners, the Commission, and staff. If I have the time, I would also like to briefly introduce the 2 petitions EDC is sponsoring, one at Anacapa Island and another at Carpinteria. And I would like to leave you with a few statistics. As Mr. Voss said, local MPAs have greatly benefited some of our local fisheries. A 35% reduction in fishing area from MPAs resulted in a 225% increase in total catch on California spiny lobster after 6 years. One of our proposed petitions, Mishapshino SMCA, makes up only 18% of fishing block number 652, and public data shows that this block represents a very small proportion of landings for Santa Barbara Port area. However, we are sensitive to the fact that the proposed petition would limit some fishing access. And with this in mind, after discussion with local fishers and fishing associations, we amended the proposed area's size and boundaries in March 2025 to exclude preferred fishing areas, allow for hook and line fishing at the shore, and reduce the proposal's areas by half. Finally, Carpinteria is a popular area for fishers, or for surfers, swimmers, kayakers, bird watchers, etc. Marine protections help safeguard everyone's ability to enjoy these areas far into the future. In 2023 alone, ocean tourism brought over $2 billion in travel-related spending to Santa Barbara County and supported more than 20,000 jobs. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, I can't provide more information, but I'm happy to follow up with Commission staff to provide our petitions and any supplemental documents. Thank you for your consideration, and I look forward to working on this issue together in the future. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And would you be able to just state your name and title again, just for the Harbor Commission?
Yeah, Asia Hudson, spelled A-Z-S-H-A, Hudson like the Hudson River, and I'm the Marine Conservation Analyst and Program Manager. Long title, but yes.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Hudson, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have any other speakers online right now with their hands raised?
We have no other speakers online with their hands raised, and we do have 2 speaker slips submitted.
Great. Yep, we will move on now to the public speaker slips.
So we have Jamie Diamond and then Harry LaCornick.
Ms. Diamond.
Good evening, Commissioners, staff. I'm Jamie Diamond. I own Stardust Sport Fishing out of Santa Barbara Harbor, as well as Santa Barbara Landing, a local tackle shop, and where ocean tourism primarily happens out of Santa Barbara. So I am just here to say I support this letter. I appreciate the thoughtfulness of it, and that this is focused on the socioeconomics, as well as the process of the MPA petition process. I recognize that this can be controversial. And, but I want to say I support this letter. I appreciate the thought and time that went into it. And any expansion or creation of new MPAs would dramatically affect not only my business, but the recreational fishing community. I'm also on the state board for the Coastal Conservation Association of California. And there is a letter that was submitted that, not to you guys, but to the Fish and Game Commission with a list of petitions of support, reject, or support as with amendments. So I just want to make sure there's no blanket statements that fishermen are against everything. We're not. And as Chris said, there has been good that comes from them, but the existing network is strong as it is. And I appreciate your time and effort that went into this. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Diamond. Appreciate it. I believe we have one other public speaker, Mr. McCormick.
Yeah, good afternoon, Commissioners. Harry LaCornick, staff, thank you. So I've been fishing in the harbor coming up on 42 years this year. I had Mr. Voss's job for 12 years starting in 1997. That was when the MLPA, the act that enacted the reserves, the Marine Life, and the Marine Life Management Act, two acts that went through legislation that really guide our management plans and these reserves. I was also a member of the Sanctuary Advisory Committee and part of the Channel Islands Marine Reserve Working Group. And the Channel Islands group, we went out ahead before the Marine Life Protection Act got enacted because we saw the value in reserves. When the abalone fishery got closed down, had there been reserves in place, we would have been able to definitively say that, you know, fishing was not the only cause. There was one small reserve at Anacapa. The landings declined right there just as dramatically in our fishing grounds. However, it wasn't a big enough area to be conclusive. Anyways, as far as the process goes, I was in that Merwig process. It was 2 years. It was a very good process of, you know, any kind of thing that involves changing reserves, a process is critical because it involves everyone, public, fishermen, recreational people. What the state has done here is just opened up a Pandora's box. And regardless of what happens here in this upcoming petition process, we still need a process to manage these things. There's a lot of usefulness that can be done with our fishing management with them, area rotation, on and on, but they just kind of basically, when we were done with those, they just shut it down, walked away, and now they opened up a Pandora's box. And as an example of not having any tools or sideboards, I'll wrap up real quick. One of those proposals on the back of Santa Rosa will impact our urchin landings in Santa Barbara Harbor by 80%. So that's just an example of how far off the rails this got. So I'd like to thank you for your time and appreciation in that letter.
Great, thank you for that. Yeah, so thank you all to the public comments. You know, we really value your guys' input when we're trying to make these decisions. And also, just on that note, you know, the reason we fill out these speaker slips is so the waterfront can reach out to answer any questions to keep everybody informed. So thank you all for the public comments. With that, we can move on to any questions or comments from the commission on this. And I believe we have one person in the queue, Commissioner Nelson.
I just, as the organizer, coordinator of the letter's preparation, want to emphasize to the full commission that we were very careful to make this a letter of concern, not a letter of opposition. And we are simply saying to defer consideration until you make certain, the commission makes certain that its own policy, one adopted in 2024, has been met, particularly when it comes to stakeholder engagement as well as the socioeconomic impact of these proposals. So it's a letter of concern. We're not taking a position on any petition or question the motivations of any of the sponsors, but we are asking to defer a vote or a decision-making until you make certain that the socioeconomics and the stakeholder engagement has occurred. Thanks.
Great, thanks for that. Yeah, Vice Chair Sedman.
Sorry, I didn't press the button. The issue was raised at our last meeting about timing of these types of letters, right? Commissioner McCray, can you review that? It seemed pretty critical that there was a timing component that we should be paying attention to.
Yes, so the timing issue has mostly to do with the timing of the commission meetings and the timing of the first time the Department of Fish and Wildlife's review of the petitions comes out into the public. And so I believe this is the last meeting we'll have before the Fish and Game Commission will receive the Department of Fish and Wildlife's analysis of those MPA petitions and the many parts of them.
And it's scheduled
Thanks.
for May 5th. I mean, the Santa Barbara area petitions are scheduled for May 5th.
For May
6th.
5th. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the commission on this item? Okay, with that, I just want to kind of just define the situation. We're not in the purview to open or close a marine protected area, the Harbor Commission. This is merely about taking all the research from all of our stakeholders and all the work that this fishing work group did with the waterfront, drafting an opinion letter, and helping out the California Department of Fish and Wildlife make this decision. So that's kind of the situation. And with that, Mr. Lopez, can you reread the recommendation for us for item number 6 of new business?
Yes, the recommendation that Harbor Commission receive a presentation from the commercial fishermen of Santa Barbara outlining concerns with marine protected area petitions that would establish new fishing closures, review and approve letter drafted by the commercial fishing work group, and Harbor Commission Chair to the California Fish and Game Commission.
Great, thank you. With that, a motion would be in order at this time.
So I'll make the motion that Harbor Commission, in receipt of this letter produced by the work group, forward it on to the appropriate department in the state of California. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Would anybody like to speak towards this motion? All right, with that, Mr. Lopez, can you please do a vote?
Yes, and this is a motion by Vice Chair Stedman, seconded by Commissioner Nelson, as described by Vice Chair Stedman. Commissioner Cohen,
Yes.
Commissioner Hymas,
Yes.
Commissioner McCray,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Stedman,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Chair Stanwyck.
Yes.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. And big thanks to the commercial fishing work group for drafting that letter and helping us out with that. So thank you all. Okay, we can move on to item number 2 of new business, the review of options for waterfront adaptation plan. Mr. Lopez, can you please read the recommendation for us?
Yes, this is item 2, recommendation that Harbor Commission receive an update on coastal erosion and flooding hazards at the waterfront and potential adaptation options to be studied further in the upcoming waterfront adaptation plan.
Great, thank you. We'll turn it over to the waterfront.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, Harbor Commission. I'm going to turn this presentation over to Timmy Bolton and Melissa Hetrick with the Sustainability and Resilience Department. They're embarking on a long journey to present our 30-year waterfront adaptation plan to council and a number of other boards and commissions. We are second on that list. Really, really informative presentation, so I look forward to you giving it your attention. It's available online as well. And just as a preface, this is sort of the kind of the initial phases of discussion of this. This is a long road to kind of discuss this plan, and so this is really kind of step number 1 to make sure that you all and the public are becoming more aware of it. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Bolton, Ms. Hetrick.
Thank you, Mr. Worsauer. Honorable Chair and members of the Harbor Commission, thank you for the opportunity to present this evening on the Waterfront Adaptation Plan. I'm Timmy Bolton, Senior Climate Adaptation Analyst and Project Manager for this work effort, joined by Ms. Hetrick, who is the city's Adaptation and Resilience Program Manager, as well as Michael Wells, who is a Climate Adaptation Analyst, and Mike Wilshire, Waterfront Director, who is a core member of the project team. We're unique as a city in that we have a dedicated adaptation and resilience program with 3 full-time staff whose purpose is to work collaboratively with teams throughout the city organization to prepare our community for current and future climate-related hazards like sea level rise, flooding, erosion, and wildfire. We're actively working on several major work efforts that include a regional coastal monitoring program with our partners at Beacon. We're preparing our water and wastewater infrastructure for all climate hazards. We're addressing flooding from rain in the Laguna watershed, and we're also supporting an adaptation project at the airport. Our other current major project is the Waterfront Adaptation Plan, which is funded by the California Coastal Commission, the Coastal Conservancy, as well as the city. My presentation today will begin with a brief overview of current and future coastal hazards. I'll then cover the toolbox of potential solutions, as well as some initial ideas on how we can improve the waterfront experience for all of our users, and then really spend the bulk of the presentation focusing on some potential design options that we're considering studying further in the next project phase. Our guiding light and vision for this project is to develop solutions for today's coastal hazards and coastal erosion for the next 30 years while enhancing what makes the waterfront special. This is about a 2.5-year work effort, and we're about halfway through it. We've completed initial community engagement, as well as spent a big effort doing a bunch of technical modeling and detailed analysis to determine what's actually at risk today, as well as in the future. We're now at the exciting juncture where we're starting to talk about solutions and beginning to sketch out how to address those risks. What you'll see presented today is a first pass at whittling down the big spectrum of all the things that we could do to a suite of options that we're considering carrying forward to the next stage in this process, which is doing a follow-on analysis to do a technical determination of feasibility, effectiveness, cost, and timing. Our project area is the 3-mile low-lying coastal area that spans from Ledbetter Beach to the Clark Estate. As you know, it's one of the city's most valuable public assets. It supports beaches, parks, the working harbor, fishing, tourism, recreation, and transportation, and serves as a cornerstone of the local economy. With about $100 million in recreational value, commercial fishing that creates $30 million in local benefit, and it plays a big role in the $2.2 billion South Coast tourism market. Due to its location and elevation, the waterfront is especially vulnerable to flooding, storms, and erosion. For this project, we're primarily focused on 2 broad categories of impacts. The first is the area where waves are actively crashing and causing damage, and the second is inland areas that are flooded from the ocean. Today, we experience both types of those impacts as shown on this slide. We've experienced big waves bashing along our shoreline. We've experienced erosion that has damaged our infrastructure and led to the partial collapse of the Harbor West parking lot, as shown in that middle left graphic. We've separately experienced flooding and sedimentation, meaning sand's gotten washed into those parking lots in the Harbor West and Ledbetter area shown in that middle right graphic. And we've also experienced flooding in the harbor commercial area itself. At the end of the day, it's not sustainable for us to spend $3 million in cleanup and repair cost on an individual storm like we did in 2023, which is one of the big reasons why we're doing this work effort. As part of this project, we took a deep dive to see how our shoreline has evolved over time. And what we found matched our anecdotal experience, which is that East Beach has been eroding significantly. Since the year 2000, certain reaches of it have eroded up to, on average, 5 feet a year or so. This photo in the middle shows East Beach during a king tide event this past November, and what we see is that there was essentially no dry sand during this tidal condition. The water was right up to the ice plant, and in some cases spilled up and over onto the bike path. This is important because not only are we losing access to dry sandy beach from a recreational standpoint, but it also means that the area on the right of this photo is far more vulnerable to coastal hazards today than it was 20 years ago. Thankfully, there is a different dynamic along our shoreline, and Ledbetter and West Beach were relatively stable to slightly accretional during the same time period relative to the year 2000. When we look forward in time, we see that our risk profile will evolve, and unfortunately our challenges will only grow with continued sea level rise. Since 2000, we've experienced 3 to 4 inches of local sea level rise, and we anticipate that that value and that rate will increase in the coming years. What this and the following slide show is our future shoreline if no changes are made to existing management decisions. So harbor dredging continues, historic erosion continues. What's different is the addition of sea level rise on top of those existing systems. So what we see here is that the green is about 0.8 feet of sea level rise, or the year 2050. The red in the middle is about 1.6 feet of sea level rise, or the year 2065. And the blue is 2.5 feet of sea level rise, or about the year 2075. And if we look at that graphic on the left at Ledbetter, we see that the beach starts to erode, and we've lost most of the sand in front of the harbor commercial area, within the next 50 years or so. It fares a little bit better in front of Shoreline Cafe and the barbecue park area on the western edge of Ledbetter. At West Beach, we see a similar trend of some erosion happening, but we see that it remains wide and sandy for a long, long time, including well beyond the 30-year focus of this work effort, which really creates this profound opportunity to really focus a sandy beach experience in this location, which is important when we then shift and look at East Beach and the challenges there. As I mentioned, we have this historic erosion challenge, and that only grows when you add sea level rise on top of that. What we found on our analysis is that with about 1.6 feet of sea level rise, or the year 2065, we've lost the sandy beach along most of each beast in this reach. And then at some point between 2065 and 2075, this entire area erodes up to Cabrillo Boulevard, which creates quite the challenge. If we really hone in on the flood risk side of things, these again show all of the existing infrastructure and management continues. The dark teal is current high tide. The lighter teal is future high tide with sea level rise, and then those various colors represent different coastal storm conditions. And what we see here is that today we already have risk of inland flooding during really big coastal storm events that extend just on the other side of Cabrillo Boulevard. And that risk only grows when you add in higher sea level rise amounts on top of that. For the purposes of this work effort, we're primarily focused on the graphics shown on the left and the middle, while preparing for and keeping an eye out for the graphic on the right. The point here is really to emphasize that we need to have some sort of vertical protective element that prevents high elevated water conditions as well as big storms from coming in and flooding our inland areas. So while we certainly have a challenge on our hand, I want to emphasize that it's truly not all doom and gloom, and we have a toolbox of proven solutions. As part of this effort, we're exploring that entire toolbox. We're looking at everything from traditional hard engineered solutions like seawalls and revetments to softer solutions like beach nourishment, sand berms, and dunes. Each one of these solutions has unique trade-offs and benefits, so it's likely that our eventual plan will have some combination of each of these to best suit specific areas. For instance, seawalls do a great job of protecting what's directly behind them, but they can also narrow the beaches in front of them. Groins are an effective way to trap sand and widen beaches, but they can cause down-coast impacts. Our funding partners certainly favor relocating assets, but some things aren't practical to move, like the harbor. I know I've talked a lot about coastal hazards, but we're really taking a holistic approach to infrastructure improvement as part of this project. If we're going to make these big investments, let's do it in a way that also improves the experience for our users. So these are all some initial ideas that we heard through the initial community engagement campaign. The first and foremost one is that we need to have a safe place to walk and bike throughout our entire project area. We've heard loud and clear that there are some issues in the network today, namely in the Harbor West and Ledbetter parking lot area, so we plan to close that gap and address that issue. West Beach is a place that has this massive opportunity based on what it's today and what it could be. It's challenged today by drainage issues, and that when it rains, there are some storm drains that outfall and create this paradigm here, where it floods and then compacts the sand and decreases the sand quality, so we plan to fix that. There are certainly epic moments along the waterfront, but there are also some places that could be better connected and more welcoming. So that's a theme you'll see embedded in some of the options I'll present later. We've heard loud and clear that folks would like more facilities along the waterfront, everything from boat storage to bathrooms. And we're looking at ideas too to figure out how to expand economic vitality and generate new revenue, support business, all of those types of concepts. And finally, there's a rich history of recreation along the waterfront, and we're looking for opportunities to expand that throughout. As we talk about solutions, we're primarily focused on those that are multi-benefit. And so what we mean by that is if we're going to add a new safe space to walk and bike in the Harbor West and Ledbetter parking lot area, why not design it in a way that can also reduce the hazard impacts that we're facing today and expect to see in the future? So one idea that you'll see built into some of these concepts later is this idea of doing an elevated walking and biking path. That could serve as an ultimate backstop during really big storms and when there's higher water levels, while also providing that safe transportation function. So taking all of this into consideration, we've pulled together a preliminary list of options as a starting point for a discussion that we're considering taking forward as a suite to do technical analysis and that next project phase. This all starts with the 4 primary objectives shown on the screen here. It's all about saving the sandy beach and recreation long term. It's about protecting the harbor in place and all of its coastal dependent uses. It's protecting our inland areas for flooding from the ocean, and is providing a safe space to walk and bike throughout our entire project area, ideally in combination with that flood protection measure. Our goal with all of our projects is to phase and right-size them based on when they're actually needed, based on on-the-ground monitored conditions. So for this project, we've really got 3 core project types shown here that accomplish just that. We've got the just do it, quick win, low-hanging fruit type projects that can be largely accomplished with existing city budgets, and would be done immediately after we finish the plan to address pressing flooding and safety issues. We're talking about things like potentially restriping parking lots, minor drainage improvements, and temporary deployable floodproofing, that type of thing. The core measures are really the foundational project of this work effort. They're the things that provide hazard protection for at least the 30-year life of this plan focus, and include comprehensive measures like this elevated walking and biking path. These are things that we would begin permitting immediately after plan adoption. We're also looking at so-called future options. These are things that aren't necessarily required for the amount of hazards we anticipate seeing during this 30-year focus, but could be required later in the century, and they're also things that could fundamentally change the dynamics of the coast, things like groins and headlands, those types of things. The way we're thinking about how these projects work together is really that the quick wins are a stopgap while we're working on permitting the core measures, which are truly the bread and butter of this work effort. And ultimately, regardless of which future options are considered, we would still need to do the elements included in these core measure type projects. So diving right into it, starting west in our project area and then working east, starting first at Ledbetter, where our vision is to maintain it as a sandy beach and recreation destination. The potential quick wins here are all about addressing those pressing safety and flooding fixes. When we mean safety, we're primarily talking about the transportation safety, so adding a new place that's safe to walk and bike through this area. One idea is to take that first row of parking and edge of the paved area to restripe that in a way that you see similar to the top left of this graphic, where there's separated space for each of those users. We're also exploring the idea of temporary deployable floodproofing in front of Shoreline Cafe, as well as the bathroom area, and seeing if there's a way to do a low curb wall at the edge of the pavement to provide some relief during storms today, similar to exists on West Beach, which is where that graphic is from. Because there's the potential to displace some parking to provide that safe space to walk and bike, we're looking at opportunities to provide replacement parking in this parking lot, primarily by using excess right-of-way that's in the western portion of this graphic, as well as converting some places that are large in landscape today that we think we can get some additional spaces out of. The core measures at Ledbetter are all structured around this idea of strategically moving things inland to provide space for the shoreline to naturally migrate inland over time. The concept here is that we would take area that's currently park and convert that to sandy beach. Behind that, explore taking area that's currently paved and replace that with some sort of park to replace that function. And then behind that is where we introduce this idea of potentially doing an elevated walking and biking path that provides that safe transportation function, and then again provides that ultimate backstop when we have big storms and when water levels are high. I do want to mention that when we're talking about strategic relocation, this can all be done in phases. So what we mean by that is when we're talking about things like Shoreline Cafe and the restrooms, the idea is not to just immediately move them, it's to move them if we have very nearby available facilities that they can move in and are safe, or if there's some sort of on-the-ground monitored condition that makes them not safe to operate. We're also looking at opportunities to expand and relocate some parking because this has a potential to displace some of that, looking at the north side of Shoreline Drive and potentially doing some multi-story parking garages in the area adjacent to Santa Barbara City College. There's also some known stormwater drainage challenges in this area, so we're looking at solutions to address that. The potential future options are really an extension of the strategy of moving things inland further to provide more space for the shoreline to naturally move in over a longer period of time. So a further area is converted to sandy beach, and then park area behind that with a walking and biking path that could potentially be raised higher. What's new here is the consideration of a potential headland at the harbor breakwater area, which isn't shown in this graphic, but it'll come up in the next section, as a method to trap a bit of sand, widen the beach a bit, provide some additional hazard protection. Shifting now to the harbor, where the vision is to maintain it as a commercial fishing, recreation, and public access destination. The immediate quick win projects are similar to that at Ledbetter of addressing pressing safety and flooding issues. So exploring doing temporary deployable floodproofing in strategic locations, doing some minor drainage improvements in the harbor commercial area to make stormwater drain better, and then extending that restriped area of the paved area to provide a safe space to walk and bike. The potential core measures here are all about this idea of making sure we have flood protection, we're prioritizing public access and prioritizing boating and other coastal dependent uses. The big move here is this introduction of a potential rock revetment in front of the entire harbor commercial area that would connect to the breakwater. This would provide hazard protection and prevent erosion and big storms from impacting that harbor commercial area and all of our coastal dependent uses. On top of that, we're considering doing a pedestrian promenade to improve public access and better bridge the connection for our users from Ledbetter to the breakwater itself, as well as to provide 360 circulation for folks to walk around that entire harbor commercial area. This would include stairs down to the sand as well as down to the water. Within the space in the harbor commercial area, we're looking for ways to protect and improve its functions for better public access and boating to maximize the space in that limited area. We're also looking at opportunities to enhance and strategically raise the walking and biking path to again provide that backstop for flood protection and safe transportation access through our project. And finally, we're exploring opportunities for some potential economic development. That could be new shops, new restaurants, event space, that type of thing, within the harbor main parking lot where we have some excess parking capacity as a means to generate some additional revenue. With some of these measures, we're exploring options that could potentially relocate some revenue generating assets. So we need to find new solutions that can ensure that we have budget to continue to maintain and operate a high quality, high functioning waterfront and potentially pay for some of these infrastructure improvement projects. The potential future options are really an extension of hazard protection. So to protect from higher water levels and bigger storms, the hard edges could all be raised higher to provide that function. This is when we could potentially explore that idea of a headland at the edge of the breakwater, which could provide some additional beach width and additional hazard protection. We're also looking at measures that could protect the marina itself. Potentially a wave screen is shown in the bottom rightish portion of this graphic, as well as a potential sand trap at the harbor entrance to protect the mouth. Shifting now to West Beach, where the vision is really to reimagine this space as a premier sandy beach destination. This is a relatively stable beach, so we only have one project category for this area, which is a core measure to accomplish just that. The first thing we need to do is to improve sand quality. And so one idea is to really consolidate that storm drain system and relocate it in such a way so it doesn't pond and compact the sand. To really lean into this idea of a sandy beach experience and a full day down there, we need to provide some supportive facilities, things like restrooms, showers, a cafe, beach concessions, those types of things. That's what's represented in that orange area in the bottom left of the graphic adjacent to the boat launch area. As with our other areas, we're exploring the idea of that elevated walking and biking path to provide that safe transportation function and ultimate backstop. This could also include an adjacent park area to really better bridge that connection from our users in the harbor commercial area to lower State Street, lower downtown, as well as Stearns Wharf. Shifting now to East Beach, the vision is quite similar to that at Ledbetter. It's all about preserving a sandy beach and a recreation destination for as long as we can. What's different here is those challenging erosion conditions, but the approach is quite similar. It's taking an area that's currently park and converting that to sandy beach, and then having that backstop behind it, that elevated walking and biking path, to provide that protection for our inland areas behind it. The potential future options are really an additive measure to this. As part of the core measures, we'd potentially align that all the way back to Cabrillo Boulevard, and there's not really space to strategically move things in further based on where Cabrillo Boulevard is located. So if we want to maintain a wide sandy beach for longer and have additional hazard protection, we need to explore ideas that engineer the beach wider through methods such as groins, headlands, or offshore reefs. Those types of concepts while considering all the trade-offs and challenges that come with these types of solutions. This again could be backed with that elevated walking and biking path that could be raised higher. We're also exploring opportunities to expand coastal access with additional coastal parking, seeing if there's an opportunity to take that Garden Street lot and do a multi-story parking garage, as well as reserving some space for a future project that we're about to launch, which is the Laguna Flood Resilience Project, to see if we need space for some of those flood resilience measures. So I know that was a lot to take in. The question is, where are we going from here? We are doing community engagement for the next 3 months or so. As Mr. Wilshire mentioned, we launched at council last week. We are going to 10 boards and commissions. We are going to be doing pop-ups in the community, stakeholder interviews, having community events, 3 open houses, 2 in person and 1 online. We're doing direct Spanish engagement with our partners at the Promotores Network, and just really trying to be open and available with our community. This summer, we'll be focused on doing technical analysis and determining the funding strategy and implementation pathway, as well as the preferred alternative, to then release a public draft plan, which will be the next stop for us in front of your commission in early '27, and with the goal of council consideration of a final plan in spring of '27, about a year from now. Here's my contact info. If anyone would like to chat after this meeting, would love to chat with anybody who wants to. We also have an awesome website that has a more detailed version of this presentation, as well as a handout and all of these materials. It's also a great place to sign up for our email and be informed of all of our future events. I also forgot to mention we'll be releasing a survey in mid-April, so that will announce when that's available. We have a series of discussion questions that we'd love to get your feedback on today and help guide the conversation. The first is, are we headed in the general right direction with the suite of options? Are these worth studying in more detail? Are there other things that we should also be looking at and doing that technical analysis on? What are we missing? What key questions do you want answered when we do that technical analysis? And do you have any initial thoughts on phasing and timing? Does anything need to be moved up? And with that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time. We're here for any questions you have.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bolton. That was a great presentation. We can move to questions from the commission. Looks like Commissioner McCray.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for the presentation. I just want to comment, as I was looking through those slides right around slide 3029, 3031, I was struck by what's shown there in the context of that image over there on the wall. And what you're talking about in really broad and general terms is a graceful transition to a state, much like what was however many years ago that picture was taken. Of course, we've got a parking lot now where there's water showing in that image, so it's not exactly like that, but I really kind of get the perspective that that's really kind of where we need to go. We need to kind of get back there gracefully in a way that preserves what's good about the waterfront and allowing what's actually relatively inevitable to happen in such a way that it does the least amount of damage along the way. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Cohen?
Thank you for the presentation, and I'm glad that this is getting out into the community because I'm going to be really interested to, hear what people say. It's a big change. A couple things. I am always concerned about the price tag. So this is a big project, and as we all know, our city right now is looking at a deficit budget of several $1 million. I don't know, I assume that this would be something that has already been looked at, but do we have any idea of what the costs are going to be to put this type of project into work? So that's one question. The other one is that it does read a little bit to me like a infrastructure protection project or like a hazard management project and not maybe a true beach preservation strategy. And so I am just curious if we have, if we have any more information on what can be done on that, because I think that there are a lot of communities that right now are facing the same type of situation. And so they're, I just would be curious to see if there is a strategy for keeping them versus just moving everything back. Those are my two questions.
Honorable Chair and Commissioner Cohen, the first one related to costs. So within the three project category types, quick wins we can largely do within existing CIP budget, city budgets, after this plan's adopted. This project's cool because it's not just a planning exercise. Within the existing consultant contract, we have preliminary construction drawings for targeted measures included in their scope. So the idea being after council adoption, we immediately begin doing that permitting process for those. We do need additional funding to complete those construction drawings as well as to implement the core measure type projects. And we certainly need outside funding to do any potential future options that are included in those project categories. That ultimately is one of the key things. I don't have an amazing answer for you today on what those will look like. One of our foundational goals within this technical analysis is to have that funding strategy. And by developing this technical analysis of what these projects would actually look like, we can then cost them in a more effective way, which then informs how we would fund them. Part of our strategy will be designing things in a way that they will be more successful for funding. Certain strategies are more likely to get funded than others. As part of the different things we will be proposing, one strategy is that we will be hoping to permit and apply for funding as part of a holistic approach and solution and permitting process with those push and pulls to make it as attractive as possible to our funding partners. But ultimately, the concrete solution of how much will this cost and what's the specific funding source will be answered with the technical analysis this summer and included in the public draft that we provide early next year.
So will this be approved then before we have any idea of what the cost is going to be? Because when I looked at the timeline, it looked like it was going to council in, is it May? Is that right?
It'll be about spring, about a year from now. So the public draft that we'll be releasing in the first part of the year will have this information. So the idea being we have a public draft that has all the funding info. We do another big outreach push. After that, we have a final plan, and that goes to council.
Okay.
We will likely need to pursue grant funding, state funding, all sorts of different types of funding strategies after plan adoption. I don't anticipate that we will have fully funded the entire scope of this project done a year from now.
No, I don't think so. But I just would like to know a little bit more information. I mean, it seems like this is hundreds of millions of dollars. So when we're saying like $3 million for storm cleanup, I understand $3 million for storm cleanup is a huge bill, but it looks like I just would want to understand that's a real important piece, I think, for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's something we'll definitely make sure is included in that technical analysis.
Thank you. And my second question.
Yes, Chair Stanwyck, Commissioner Cohen, Melissa Hetrick. So our biggest goal with this plan was actually to preserve beach area and protect the harbor. But wherever we can on the waterfront, we're trying to keep beach space. And one of the big reasons for that is because over time we are losing access to our beaches that are backed by bluffs, which is a big percentage of beaches in our region. And it's going to really, our waterfront beaches are already some of the most heavily used in the region, and that will only increase over time, and the desire to have sandy beach and use it will increase over time. So to the extent that didn't come across, it's like actually a really good comment. And we are looking at all options, including things that jurisdictions such as like Oceanside are looking at, such as groins and headlands that keep sand and expand the beach. Those measures, though, are hard to permit. They're very expensive. I think Oceanside's currently proposing 2 headlands and an offshore reef. It's about $75 million for a small area, and take a number of years to analyze and get permitted and funded. In addition, they can be very controversial. So for instance, on their initial proposal in Oceanside, they had a groin system, and Carlsbad sued them and won. Because when you have groins and headlands, they're meant to trap sand. And so if you don't fill them with sand when you make them, and then refill them with sand over time, it will affect the beaches down the coast from us. So that's something that we're definitely looking at as part of the plan, but it's a big commitment, not just initial outset of costs, but in maintenance. And so from our perspective, the need to move things back and also protect Cabrillo Boulevard and the assets north of that, so the grid, the downtown grid from flooding, with a raised bikeway is going to be needed either way. And so the way that we're looking at this is that that the measures and the core measures are very likely to be needed either way. And that really something like a groin system that would add beach could be additive to that over time.
Yeah, I don't know what systems do add beach. I just, we won't be able to keep moving back forever. I mean, I guess we don't have a choice if the water keeps coming, but it would be, like I say, to me, I'm not seeing the beach preservation piece of this. So that's my feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hemis.
Thank you. I have 3 questions. So it seems like in 2024 and 2025 was an initial public input period. I'm curious if there was any consultation with any of the 6, 7 bands of Chumash Indians, including the federal and non-federally recognized bands throughout our territory. And I'm curious about the nature-based solutions that include kelp restoration, rocky reef restoration along our coast that can provide a natural defense mechanism. Actually, it would be returning our coastline to what it used to look like. And I'm curious with that map of what the old lagoon wetlands used to look like. Is there any talks, game plan about what payouts could look like to residents or commercial owners that are in that flood zone area? And why I think it's important to consult with Chumash people. A lot of the issues that we're having today with flooding, our airport is flooding. It used to be an island where our people used to live. It used to be a natural harbor that we used. The indigenous people in the Pacific came to visit us and trade with us and landed there. If Chumash people were consulted, maybe that's where the Santa Barbara Harbor could have been, and we maybe wouldn't have these problems. And these flooding problems on the east side of Santa Barbara, a lot of folks are very concerned to why development was able to happen in those flood-prone areas. And again, if the indigenous people of this land, if Chumash people were properly consulted and taken serious, maybe we wouldn't have a lot of housing, commercial spaces constantly being flooded. So those are my 3 questions about Chumash consultation, what that looks like, if that's being planned. I'm interested in the nature-based solutions and if payouts are being considered in this plan.
Through the chair, thank you for the questions, Commissioner. For the question of Chumash engagement, when we did the initial survey, I included a bunch of folks as part of that email blast to that. We didn't get a lot of participation then. We participated in a roundtable that was organized by one of our funding partners at the Conservancy. And as part of this next phase here, we will be meeting directly with stakeholders, and we plan to meet with the Chumash community as part of that exercise. That's when we plan to really have those conversations. So it's coming soon, and I would love any help to help facilitate those conversations and get those going. But that's definitely a goal now that we are starting to put pen to paper and have some better ideas of the types of things we're considering to pursue. In regards to the nature-based solutions, that's something we've heard loud and clear from council already and something we plan to incorporate into some of these solutions. We've had some preliminary conversations with our consultant, and we sort of view them as additive things to some of these big measures. We think it could be great to do kelp forest, some of these natural type solutions to help reduce these hazard risks. Ultimately, we're still going to need some sort of backstop for big coastal storms like we're looking at with the elevated walking and biking path type concept. But we are certainly, we've heard and we can continue to explore how can we add nature-based components to all of these solutions as really an additive component, especially for lower level storms. And then your final question about payouts, that's not something we've explored yet. I think one of the reasons why with this effort we're really focused on the 30-year time frame is that the amount of hazards we anticipate seeing and the types of storms and water levels are at a level that we think we can design in such a way that keeps the waterfront a similar vibe and function that it is today. There's a point towards the end of the century with elevated water levels where it's a bit different, and I think that's when we would start to explore things on the other side of Cabrillo Boulevard. For this effort so far, we sort of had a base assumption that that's sort of our line in the sand, in addition to the harbor, that we would protect against inland flooding and big storms.
Thank you for explaining that. Just to add, another reason why I think would be important to really embrace tribal government input and community members, descendants of tribes in Santa Barbara. When we make decisions, our decisions are being made based off of how whatever decision we make today will have an impact on the next 7 generations of our community. And I think if there's a way to restructure, it seems like we're looking at a 30-year period right now. I think if we look at a 7-generation period, I just think that's the most best use of our time and money. Again, with restoring our historical kelp bed, which would also bring an economic boost to our commercial fishermen, a tourism boost. And I guess I don't know if that would be a decision you guys can make or to go with council, but if we can extend greater than like a 30-year period to what we're looking at, I think that would be ideal. I was just at a conference in the Hawaiian Kingdom with dozens of other indigenous peoples from different island nations throughout the Pacific, having these exact conversations on how they can protect not just their coastline, but their entire nation, which I think we're in somewhat of a lucky position where what the effects we're feeling right now and the projected sea level rise and storm surge is only affecting beaches. But around the world, and I think if we're only looking at a 30-year period, these effects that we're facing are going to be just like the island nations in the Pacific, where it's not just a hit on tourism or a hit on beach recreation, but it's going to be a hit, again, on people's houses. And again, if we look at a 7 generations time period, I think we'll be able to help out people who have bought houses in Santa Barbara instead of in 50 years from now finding ourselves in a deeper situation where the infrastructure that we created that is not helping our land, nature. I just might be going on a tangent, but not really a question, but I guess is it possible to expand the 30-year scope?
Yeah, Chair Stanowik, Commissioner Hames. So this project is tearing off a broader sea level rise adaptation plan that the council approved in 2021 that looked out to 6.6 feet of sea level rise. So it was basically 2150 at this point. And so as we launched into this plan, there is kind of this turning point in the 30 to 50 year time frame where we're going to need to consider large-scale flood control measures. So things like raising Cabrillo Boulevard, rerouting portions of Cabrillo Boulevard, things like that. And so the purpose of this effort right now is really to get us through the next 30 years and then build on it. We're not just, in our analysis, we're not just looking at 30 years. So when we're looking at, like, say, a growing system or moving things back, we are looking to, well, how long will that last and what will happen many years beyond that to that system, and how might that impact how we adapt in the future. So we can certainly add in, like, that analysis, but I hesitate to try to take on solving the problem for that much of time, because, to be honest, it will be such a big project and would really transform how we use and enjoy the waterfront. And so really our idea of this project is to phase it. So this is kind of phase 1, and we'll be monitoring conditions over time. And then we'll have a phase 2 ready to be put into place when we reach that next phase. So we totally agree with you that the 30-year timeframe is not big enough to be looking at holistically. But as far as like what we're actually proposing to put in the ground, we're trying to keep it to that near and midterm time period, if that makes sense.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Nelson?
Yes, well, in terms of the questions, I think you're moving in the right direction. I also think the phasing makes a lot of sense. But in terms of what you may have missed, the numbers that you suggested for the economic impact of the waterfront sounded a little low. And wonder if you have looked at a study that was done by Santa Barbara City College of the impact of the blue economy on Santa Barbara County. As I vaguely remember the numbers, they were talking about $41 billion over 5 years and 400,000 jobs. Admittedly, the bulk of that, the big wedge of that and the pie are recreation and tourism. But I think it was done by the UCSB Economic Project and a guy named Peter Rupert. Did the study, happy to get it for you. But it was used to support whether or not City College and the city should pursue an ocean collective that would focus on the infrastructure associated with ocean industries and a workforce development program out of SBCC. So in terms of a cost-benefit ratio, I think you can probably show higher value. And if you pursued the blue economy aspect, then you can perhaps move towards the natural solutions that create real value. And so it's just take a look at that. And I hope that when you get into stakeholder discussions, you can do that. Because what was the working harbor, there are constituents that think that the working harbor becomes, you know, the center of the blue economy in Santa Barbara. And then while you looked at projects in like Oceanside and Carlsbad and all that, have you looked at how other communities, the financing structure? Because I think you're going to head to these big projects that take this much larger than $100 million. I mean, a lot. Well beyond the funding capacity of the organizations that we typically rely on for coastal improvements. I mean, so is it possible when you get to that funding strategy that you look at how others have done it, or have you already done that? So one, the blue economy, and two, broadening the financial structure as opposed to not just saying outside funding from the usual suspects. So.
Honorable Chair, thank you for the question, Commissioner. I appreciate the highlight of the blue economy study. I will look into that. Anything to improve our messaging and better bolster and get that accurate, can definitely integrate all of that. For the funding side of things, we will be looking at every type of creative structure possible. I think, quite frankly, we are out in front of tackling this issue compared to a lot of California communities. So we are breaking new ground in a lot of ways, but we do have some examples, as Ms. Hetrick mentioned. But again, I don't have the most amazing answer because that's really the focus of the next phase, but we will be looking at everything from, local financing structures to grant to bond measures to everything else. And Ms. Hetrick might have something to add to that.
Yeah, Commissioner Nelson, I just wanted to add, there is definitely an assumption that the core measures here are going to be beyond the scope of, it's not going to be slip fees paying for these measures, and that the measures benefit everyone in the city and are really citywide benefit, and so should be borne by both the city in addition to other funding partners. So that is the assumption we're going in with when we start looking at what things cost, how we might fund them, getting them into our capital improvement program that, municipal bonds and loans and things like that. To the extent feasible, if we can obtain state funding or our federal funding, we'll do so though.
Got it, thanks.
Just a follow-up question to that. The funding for this will come out of city budget or the waterfront budget, or waterfront is going to be responsible for selling bonds supposedly for this, or how is that going to look?
No, Chair Steiner, we're not there yet. And so this effort in itself was funded through a grant, and so that's why we are in the place we're in. We've had grant funds who've allowed us to get us this far. I think a lot of it, this is a planning exercise, so we'll have a plan. It's really a strategic plan on how we manage our coastline. A good example occurred just 3 years ago when we had these giant storms and we installed a rock revetment in front of the yacht club. That was a design solution from a plan that was in place from 2001. We didn't have the money to actually do the work then in 2001, but you fast forward to now, and because we had a plan and a design solution, it allowed us to take action when a trigger point occurred. So this is kind of extrapolating that on a grand scale and saying, hey, what are we going to do for the next 30 years so that we have a playbook and a way to address it that the community, Harbor Commission, council, boards and commissions have been involved in and been supportive of, so we're not being reactionary. But the real answer is beyond the sort of easy wins where we're talking about flood protection, maybe the bike path, that sort of stuff, which can easily land in the waterfront's capital budget. Beyond that, we haven't identified a funding mechanism.
Okay. Yep, thanks. Commissioner McRae.
Yeah, I just want to comment on just some perspective that coastal and wetland habitats are very dynamic. They're naturally dynamic places. And big changes can happen very quickly or gradually over time, but they're big, and they tend to be much bigger than you'll see, farther off the beach in the marine environment or in higher ground ashore. For example, today, if you go along West Beach and the eastern part of our harbor area, between Cabrillo Boulevard and the parking lot, you'll see that there's a little low wall, and it has an interesting concave face to it that faces out towards the channel. That was a wave reflector, and it's still there, and it shows where in the past the shorelines have been. And since then, infrastructure has caused sand to build up in there, and it's one of our better sites for preserving sandy beach access at this point. You're just talking about preserving the quality of the sand and experience that could be had there. If you look towards the airport, Commissioner Spencer, he mentioned that was once an open harbor. My understanding is that in about somewhere in the 1800s, there was massive rains, and it actually filled that in to the level such that what's now the airport could be built on top of it. But it was actually an open bay for a considerable amount of time before then. So that's a change that happened very quickly. My sense is that we will continue to see the waves encroach where we didn't expect them to encroach. We'll see it tear up pavement and parking lots that we didn't expect them to, or maybe we plan to eventually have that event potentially happen as the Director Wiltshire just pointed out. I think what's key here is knowing what you might do if and when it happens, and giving some serious consideration about stuff that's torn up by the waves as to whether or not you really want to expend the funding, time and effort and resources to put it back exactly where it was. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McRae. Commissioner Anderson?
Thank you all for that presentation. I think that was, I think that is a great start. Is your first question asked? I think there's a lot of good ideas in there, but similar to what everyone said, and I know you guys are doing a lot more work past phase one, but I think when people are looking at the presentation, they're going to want to see how the work and the dollars spent in phase one will translate to the later phases, and which ones are, it'll be easier for us to support something if it was to say, the walkway would transfer into something later that would help 50, 80, 120 years down the road. So understanding how phase one links to the later stages, I think, would be helpful. And then also understanding your confidence level in the numbers and where you think, as Merritt alluded to, waves are, to me, seem erratic at times and hard to predict. So understanding, your confidence level in the maps and the diagrams on where the water is going, and then if you get it wrong, what's the risk? If we get something incorrect, what kind of decision are we facing at that point? I think would be helpful to people to understand kind of which way to vote. I mean, the expanded walkway for me, it feels like there's a lot of support from you guys on that one. It does feel like a really good short-term option. It makes sense to someone that doesn't understand it as a level as you guys do. And then just another smaller item is, you know, when State Street kind of closed, the parades have been moved around, and I know some of them have been down there near the waterfront, and maybe just thinking about how to incorporate those in the future. That always got my vote in terms of access and beauty. It's next to the water, so just maybe thinking about the width of the road or parking, et cetera, like to accommodate parades in the future. Are my points so far. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Cohen?
Hi, thank you. One more item that I just can't leave this topic without bringing up is just when I look at the Ledbetter quick wins and what's being planned there, it sounds like pretty quickly. Can't ignore the fact that there's a tremendous amount of parking that would be impacted or lost on that beach. And one of the great things about Santa Barbara is that we have been able to preserve. I mean, we're one of the few communities where you can just go to the beach and park right in front of the beach and enjoy. Do we have any idea of how many parking spaces that that this plan would eliminate in that area? I understand that there's a conversation about expanding parking in other areas. I'm not quite sure where that would be, but I don't know. It's kind of nice right now that the bikes and the cars can share, and it has two dual uses. But yeah, I'm just concerned that that would impact people's access to get to the beach if we lose all of that parking.
Honorable Chair, thank you for the question, Commissioner. For the quick wins for restriping that existing parking lot, we think we can relocate most of the spaces that would be impacted within that parking lot. So there's some excess right-of-way on sort of the northwest portion of that area. When you come down Shoreline Drive, there's this weird gap that exists between the parking lot and the actual road you're driving on. And so by shifting some of that parking lot over and recapturing some of that space, we could make up a good amount of spaces there. There's also some large landscaped areas within the existing Ledbetter and Harbor West parking lot that we think we can shrink a little bit to make up those spaces. So the goal with the quick wins is to retain about the same number of spaces as we have today. For the core measure ones, which that includes the idea of strategically moving things inland, as represented in these graphics, about half the spaces would be relocated within that existing lot on the north side of Shoreline Drive into that multi-story garage, with a goal of keeping about the same amount of spaces, if not adding more to what we have today, but we haven't done an analysis yet to see how many spaces can we truly add through a multi-story garage on the north side of Shoreline. Our goal is very much to maintain high-quality, good public access, and we understand the role that that plays in parking. We can definitely make sure that we have that better captured as part of this technical analysis in the next phase.
Thank you. I think that that's something that a lot of people will be concerned about whenever, you know, I'm sure many of us in this room have gone down at sunset and parked in one of those spots and watched the sun go down, you know, maybe without a glass of wine or beer or whatever it might take. But if you remove all of those, then it, you know, it's going to be an impact for a lot of people. So it's good to hear that you're already thinking about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hymas.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment, just Commissioner McRae, with just like to respectfully let everyone know the history of Hetlo. Hetlo, our island that is now the Santa Barbara Airport. It used to be one of the biggest Chumash villages, home to roughly like 1,000 people on the island, and then a couple thousand more surrounding the island. And it was actually one of the original spots that when the Spaniards came, along with the Catholic Church, they wanted to remove us from that island and then put a mission and a presidio there. And then there was this huge war, and the Spanish ended up getting overran, so they went down south to where we are now in Santa Barbara. But the after that, there was more waves of colonization where, again, disease came in and constant attacks from the Spanish, religious attacks from the Catholic Church dwindled our numbers down to where eventually there was nobody left on that island, and what was left was our remains and artifacts. And so then Europeans came and they settled on our island and turned it into a bean farm. I believe it was bean or corn, but they turned it into a farm with invasive species, which, like we see today, invasive species completely destroy our land, our soil. So when you have land that's extremely dried out, and then you add cattle to that, which again eats our invasive species or our native species, on top of that, heavy rains, that's when you're going to see that result that you were talking about. So yes, things do happen, but again, when we're not talking to Chumash people, we're not consulting, learning about the history, what our land used to look like, and how it sustained us for 14,000 plus years, we can learn things and help guide us to an actual sustainable future for our city that protects the citizens of Santa Barbara and California and everywhere else. But yeah, thank you. Not really a question, but.
No, thanks for that, Commissioner Hamers. Commissioner Nelson?
The issue of parking makes me wonder, when you do the examination or the exploration of what's possible, will you consider whether or not we can afford to put that much waterfront in parking? Is that the best use of the landscape? If we're trying to protect beach and we're trying to protect land for people to have a better experience, is the concept of those parking lots a little bit inappropriate or outdated? I mean, could you do a parking garage, finance it through some kind of authority that provides for the spaces, but it frees up spaces for your priority uses? Will that be part of the analysis when you address parking, or will it be an analysis of how much of what exists can we maintain as opposed to what can we do to maintain a certain level of spots?
Honorable Chair and Commissioner Nelson, I love this question because we have included it in our draft survey.
Well, that's great.
So this is one of the things that we are looking to our community for input on. Good. In that if we're making this base assumption that we need to provide space for the shoreline to naturally move inland and remain sandy, then we have less space to do things with. So the question becomes, how do we maximize and prioritize what we should do within that area, of which parking is clearly an important use.
Right.
But there's a question of what it role is in the future and how that compares to park area, how that compares to other things.
Yep. Great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I don't see any other questions or comments from the commission. Mr. Lopez, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do have 2 speaker slips submitted, Chair Stanwyck, but no hands raised online.
Great. Okay, we could start off then with the first public speaker.
So we have Carol Shaw, and then I believe it's Mary. I'm unable to make out the last name, but Carol Shaw is up first.
Great. All right, Mrs. Shaw, yeah, you can step up to the podium here, and you'll have 2 minutes.
I had something that I had planned to say, but having heard this presentation, I'm even more horrified. I really am thinking about the replenishment of the beach, all of these questions about financing. I started to say, because I'm an ocean swimmer, the process, I don't know what public comment was elicited, but at least in 2024, there was a petition to save the Ledbetter bathrooms and showers that there was 1,000 people who signed to say, preserve this, please. But that was triggered by a sign on the beach. And I don't know what public engagement there is. And then I'm hearing something is going to go to council. I'm wondering if we're putting the cart before the horse, because I don't feel that there's been enough. The process seems to not really be including the public. And that's me. For residents on the west side and for City College, that bathroom is invaluable. And I really feel it should be, talk about resilience. It's gone through every single storm, please leave what's intact. I think this whole, contemplating the construction of a garage structure is, I think, fiscally irresponsible and very short-sighted, because as we've discussed, waves are dynamic, and the ocean rise is only going to be greater. So I think this is some sort of pie in the sky that really doesn't take into account the natural conditions that we're living in. And I also think shortchanges the public, because basically we just want access to the beach. And without being charged exorbitant fees and without increasing our tax burden, I suggest the 30-year plan be implemented in stages. I agree, phasing it, but phasing it based on the replenishment of the beach and looking at how this can be most effective. And until a determination is made, I don't see any reason for new construction. Plus, also, please put the bike path towards the shoreline instead of putting it between the beach and people. I've seen e-bikes crossing over. There are people who are disabled, people who are old, children. If you push everything, if that's the line, I think that just makes more sense. I also want to say I don't want to see more cruise ships, but also I urge the city, I urge the commission to have enough community conscience to at least allow Ledbetter Beach remain really as accessible to local residents as possible, and really focus on replenishing the beach in it as much as possible. Thank you. I've run out of time.
Great, thank you for the comments.
Thank you very much for your consideration.
Yep. Okay, I believe we have one other public speaker.
This is going to be kind of a repeat, but first of all, I agree with you, the Commissioner for Chumash, Spencer. We should be looking at the natural use of what, has been going on for thousands of years. But the other thing, even right now, today, no one has come down to the beach and talked to the people who are actually using it. I mean, that's the main thing. There's a bunch of us. There's dozens and dozens of us that are there daily. We swim throughout the whole year. We see what's going on, and we've saw no notice, no publication of a meeting happening. I happened to see or hear a 10-second bleep on the local news station about this. And I was horrified. I told everyone I could, and we got as many people as here as possible. It has us feeling like you want to just slip this by. But if you really want, you said you got public input. No one came down and talked to us. We're there every day. You guys, you know us well. And we see what's going on. We see the erosion. Talk to us, because we do see it. The other thing is, if you put that walkway where you say you're going to do it, the last big storm would have taken that out completely. I think we really need to be realistic about what's happening there. I agree that the parking is really an issue, and it has to do with all the kinds of use that people come there for. The people who park there in the morning use it for different reasons than the people that come in the afternoon. And come down and watch. There's dozens of groups of swimmers. And we've been coming for decades and decades. I've been living here since the 60s. That water up front, the restroom, has withheld every storm. Why take it away if it works? I think we need to really look at this in steps and be realistic. Thank you. And,
Great, thank you.
One last thing. Please post all the meetings in the future on the beach so everyone can see it. Maybe you'll have a large, I know you will, and we'll put the word out, because I think you really need the public's input. It's really vital. Thank you.
Great, thank you for the comments and the opinions as well. We want to include all the public in these decision-making as much as possible, so appreciate the input. Mr. Lopez, do we have any other public speakers online or any other speaker slips?
Chair Stanwyck, there are no other hands raised and no other speaker slips submitted.
Sure, you can make a public comment, absolutely, yeah.
I'm also an ocean swimmer. And I
Great,
swim
yes,
every
you've,
day for the last 20
yeah,
years.
you have 2 minutes.
Winter and summer. And I really like the approach of being on the beach and going in the water. I feel that putting those raised walkways and bike paths would really destroy that. And I feel right now with the berm that is being rebuilt every year, it's such a small price compared to huge amount of money that you would put in to fix the same problem that you fix every year with the berm. And taking away parking and creating a garage wouldn't work for the kiters, for the wingers, for the boarders, all the people that go there and use that facility with all their equipment. Even now, the parking is almost a little limited for all those people that go there. And one more thing, everybody I know from out of town are thrilled to come and eat a Shoreline Cafe. They say it's the only place on the West Coast where you can sit in the sand and have a fantastic lunch. And if they would be gone, I think, and if the bathroom would be gone, who's going to go to Shoreline? Who's going to go to Ledbetter? We would, but the people coming from out of town wouldn't. And you said that you would refurbish West Beach. Have you ever smelled the water in front of West Beach? It smells like fish. It smells like there are all those pelicans sitting there pooping in the water. There are all the sea lions there. All the boats, the fuel from the boats. It's not a place where anybody that comes from out of town and spends a lot of money to come here would want to visit. Anyway, my 2 cents there. Thank you.
Great, thank you. If you can, you could please fill out a speaker slip. That would just give the waterfront an idea to contact you for any input or anything going forward. So, yeah. Oh, I was just saying, if you could please fill out a speaker slip, that would just be helpful to get information going forward. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Back to the commission. We've heard public comment. I believe Commissioner Jaimes would like to speak.
Yeah. Are we able to, sorry, Director Wilshire, are we able to request that this becomes a work group? I think this is a pretty big topic, and we're talking about our waterfront possibly completely changing. I think there should be a fair amount of commission input throughout this process, especially if this is, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're just planning and then giving a plan and then looking for funding, and I'm sure there will be certain levels of priority and non-priority.
Yeah, Commissioner Jaimes, that's a great request. This is a really large city effort. It's not even being led by the Waterfront Department. So as Mr. Bolton and Ms. Hetrick mentioned, they're presenting to 8 or 10 other boards and commissions who this impacts in some way, maybe equally, maybe not. For the public who are here, this really is the start. I mean, we've introduced it to council, and today we're introducing it to Harbor Commission. Mr. Bolton led off the meeting laying out all of the public outreach we're going to be doing with tabling and events and trying to get this as in front of people as we possibly can. So this is not any sort of decision period, but I'm gonna recommend respectfully that we, the Harbor Commission, shouldn't develop a work group because it's much broader than that. That would be a council directive to involve multiple boards and commissions, multiple staff members, and that would be kind of at their discretion.
Okay, Commissioner Cohen?
Just to follow up on that request, I do feel like the harbor is uniquely impacted by this. As you can tell, we have members of the public coming here, trying to, or letting us know their concerns when this is going to be going to multiple other commissions, and we're just advisory at this point. We're just learning about it at the same time the public is. So I'm just wondering if we can't have a work group or a group of commissioners that are following this, if we could just, maybe you can send us some information on where we can ourselves make sure that we're following it and that we're attending or going to meetings, so that, and maybe it could come back to us this year or as the process is moving through, so that I just feel like we're going to get a lot of questions. And it would be good to make sure that we're all well educated on the process and what's going on. It's been very helpful today.
Yeah, absolutely. Sharing the schedule and the kind of plan going forward, absolutely. We want to make that as public as we possibly can. So harbor commissioners are welcome to attend those meetings. As far as coming back, again, we'd be happy to bring it back to the Harbor Commission as well, if needed, if there's kind of a more forum for that. I'd like to trust the process a little bit. This is going to get a lot of airtime over the next kind of 3 months. It's going to be as front-facing as any city effort, so there's going to be a lot of public input in various venues. Parks and Recreation Department does look after the beaches. A lot of this is impacting beaches, so they're going to have a lot of interest in it as well. We've been working at a department level with multiple department staff, and so absolutely is the answer. We can bring it back to Harbor Commission as many times as we need, but I'd like to give some space and some time for sustainability and resilience to kind of take it through the process and see how that goes as well.
Yeah, I'll just add that we can certainly incorporate into the schedule more touch points with the whole commission throughout the process. And we understand that this commission and Parks and Rec Commission are uniquely interested in this project. So that can definitely be incorporated into our schedule.
I would really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Stedman.
Yes, thank you very much. I just want to raise the awareness level of my fellow commissioners and reiterate that one of the priorities, or a set of priorities that we developed in January, we do this annually, is to do continued strategic planning across the commission, including parking policy review, including slip policy economic analysis, including Chumash history, and including comps with the Ventura and Channel Islands Harbor. The local coastal plan mandates that we use these priorities as a filter to consider business throughout the year. We also have a working, active strategy work group. So this type of issue and monitoring and updates can be incorporated into our readouts.
Yeah, thank you for that, Commissioner Stedman. Any other questions or comments from the commission? All right, well, there's no vote intended on this. This was just basically Q&A and information. Mrs. Hetrick and Mr. Bolton, thank you for the presentation. Also, too, really thankful that you guys put in those 5 discussion questions. It kind of gave us some time to think about some of the questions we had, just to kind of facilitate the discussion. So thanks a lot for the great presentation and for your time being here tonight. Appreciate it. Okay, we can move on to item number 3 of new business, the potential use of waterfront parking lots of recreational vehicle camping. Mr. Lopez, can you please read the recommendation for us?
Yes, this is item 3, recommendation the Harbor Commission receive a presentation on the Waterfront Department's progress in creating a pilot project to install recreational vehicle campsites in existing waterfront parking lots.
Great, we'll turn it over to the waterfront.
Chair Stanoway, Commission, Nico Lopez will be handling this presentation.
Great, thank you.
We'll just give him a sec to get settled.
Also, while we're getting set up, just want to say that the recommendation on this is that we receive this presentation, but also we would like to just have a vote of confidence to move something like this forward. So just be thinking about that as we hear the presentation. So thanks, Ms. Lopez.
Chair Stanwyck, Vice Chair Stedman, members of the Harbor Commission, my name is Nico Lopez, and I am the Administrative Assistant here at the Waterfront Department. And today we are going to be discussing the possibility of converting a waterfront parking lot into an overnight recreational vehicle camping area. So for a bit of background on the project, in the latter portion of last year, 2025, the finance department for the city of Santa Barbara directed all city departments across the city to identify revenue generating and cost reduction measures in an effort to alleviate some of the financial burdens that have been forecast for the city over the course of the next few years. There were over 200 ideas that were submitted by staff from all departments, and these ideas were organized into tiers based on priority for the city council. Of those, 3 ideas were determined to be of the highest priority. Those were a waterfront RV park in an existing waterfront parking lot, cannabis tax measures, and other tax increases at the November ballot later this year. So ultimately, City Council did direct staff to analyze the possibility of creating overnight RV camping in an existing waterfront parking lot. And today I'll be sharing with you the outcome of that analysis, as well as our initial proposal for a pilot project. So first and foremost, staff had to identify an ideal location for a pilot project like this. We weighed our existing waterfront parking lots and came to the conclusion that the Palm Park parking lot was a very suitable location for this project. Specifically, as you can see on the image on your screen, that eastern half of the lot is what we're targeting for this pilot project. This parking lot was chosen for its location. It's far enough from some of the residential areas in the city, but also close enough to the wharf and some of the other businesses on Cabrillo. So it was identified as the most ideal location. Getting into some of the details of what we are proposing. So we would propose to restripe that eastern half of the Palm Park lot, as I mentioned previously. In discussions internally, we've determined that the space can accommodate about somewhere between 16 and 26 RV parking spaces, and that's dependent on final plans related to maneuverability and what we can actually fit into that space, but that was the range that we were able to determine. We are proposing for this project to offer no amenities beyond the actual space itself, so we wouldn't be offering any access to water, electricity, or sewer hookups. So these would essentially be self-contained dry camping spaces and just the actual stalls themselves. So here on your screen, this is just a basic mock-up rendering of what the space could look like with the restriping and with actual recreational vehicles in there. Just to note, this is not final by any means. It's just a chance to give you all a sense of what it could look like as a pilot project in that space. Here we have a couple different comparable locations that we've looked at across the state of California. Specifically, we have the Rincon Parkway and Emma Woods State Beach, the North Beach campground. So these are similar locations that we would be basing our pilot project off of. Specifically, the Rincon Parkway, you can see that campers just have access to the space itself. There are no bathrooms, electrical hookups, or water or anything. So we would be mirroring something similar to these spaces for our pilot project. So in thinking about revenue for this space, obviously the goal here is to create an area that is a revenue generator for the waterfront to help us tackle some of our financial burdens in the future. The space, as it exists currently, generates around $696,000 per year in revenue. So if we cut that in half and generalize, the eastern half generates roughly $348,000. So we are having that as a benchmark of a goal that we need to reach in order to essentially match what the space currently makes. And obviously this is a very conservative measure. We're not anticipating losing exactly that amount, but it gives us a good sense of the revenue goal we would need to target in order to start to think about this being a successful revenue generating effort. And here we have just a pretty simple table that takes into account that $348,000 benchmark. On the left, we have a range of total number of stalls that we'd be able to create. I mentioned between 16 and 26. And then the columns are based on some potential price points that we could set for a daily rate for the RV camping. So the columns there between 100 and 110. And this gives us a general calculation of the number of days each space would need to be booked in order to get to that $348,000 benchmark. So obviously more stalls and a higher price would equate to fewer days of necessary bookings. So it just gives us a general sense of what we could potentially have as a price point for these RV parking spaces that would get us to that goal that we're looking for. And on the flip side of that, there are going to be some costs associated with this project, both initial and ongoing. So right away, we will have costs associated with restriping the pavement itself to accommodate however many stalls that we end up pushing for. There are also going to be some permitting costs related to permits that we anticipate we're going to have to acquire for this project. And we're also going to have some ongoing costs. So we are looking into the possibility of subscribing to software that handles reservations for something like this. It's not something that we can necessarily handle right now, so we would have to consider that in the future, as well as some park supervision or hosting capacity that we would need to most likely contract out for. In the past, we've discussed the possibility of some sort of volunteer option, but as of right now, we are sort of forecasting it as a potential ongoing cost for this as well. So in reference to this project and to date, we have met with both the Community Development Department and the City Attorney's Office to discuss the feasibility of this project and how possible it is. And there has been some concerns expressed. So the Community Development in particular, we're concerned about zoning. Specifically that overnight RV camping is actually not permitted according to the municipal code in the zone where the Palm Park lot is. We've discussed with them as well as the city attorneys for a couple different workarounds. There is a provision that would allow the community development director to potentially allow a special use on a case-by-case basis, and there are some other avenues related to municipal code changes that we can explore as well. But that's the summary of those internal city discussions. And then finally, in terms of next steps for this pilot project, we are actively working with the Community Development Department and the City Attorney's Office to figure out the best path forward to be able to make this happen. Depending on the route we go, there are generally a few very likely steps we would need to take in order to make this pilot project happen. We would have to secure most likely a conditional use permit from the city. We would have to go to city council with an ordinance for various municipal code changes. And then we would also most likely have to secure a coastal development permit from the California Coastal Commission. So it gives us a sense of some of the steps we would need to take in order to make this project happen. And that concludes my portion of the presentation, and I'm open to any questions that you all may have.
Great, thanks a lot, Mr. Lopez. Do we have any questions for the commission regarding this? Vice Chair Stedman.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Nico, for the presentation. One question, I realize there are some early obstacles, right, with zoning and the city attorney's office. Is there also a risk management framework that you guys kind of put this through for analysis? You know, like what is the probability of a fire and a conflagration, right, in that sort of tight maneuvering area for these oversized vehicles? You know, where is the closest bathroom, right? I mean, human beings are fairly practical. You know, these are self-contained, under consideration are self-contained units. However, you know, I think people, if there's a bathroom nearby, will probably prefer to use that whenever possible. So is there a risk framework is my question for analysis.
Chair Stanwyck, Vice Chair Stedman, where we're at now in our analysis, we haven't quite gotten to that step. I think our initial priority has been to determine what avenues we can go down to make the project possible. Some of those logistical concerns we haven't quite gotten to yet in kind of where we're at in thinking about the project. So in terms of the question related to bathrooms, we're looking at some of these other, I mentioned the Rincon Parkway. They rely on California Government Code 18010, which defines what an RV is and what is allowable in that space, and it is defined as a self-contained unit. So once we get to that stage, we can determine how we want to sort of make that determination. But for now, that's kind of where we're at in our planning phase.
Thanks for that code citation. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Commissioner Cohen.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation, Nico. A couple of things. Do we know how many parking spaces are in that area that would be lost to this effort if it moves forward?
Chair Stanwyck, Commissioner Cohen, there are 127 standard stalls and 4 oversized parking stalls in that eastern half.
Okay, so 127 parking spaces.
Mm-hmm.
I also am wondering if at one point this first was brought up as a possibility. I had suggested that maybe working with a third party and having this be some sort of licensed contract or concession contract where the city doesn't have as much skin in the game, but they know that there's a certain amount of profit that is going to be going back to the city, like a similar situation maybe to the sea landing, if you wanted to, and was there any thought into what something like that would look like, or was that kind of just put on a back burner?
Chair Stanwyck, Commissioner Cohen, I would say that we're considering all possibilities. Again, with some of those logistical questions for management of the actual space itself, I think that will still come a little bit farther down the road. Our real priority has been to figure out some of these municipal code challenges and what path we can take. So I think some of those logistical questions will just have to be kicked a little bit farther once we get to those stages.
Okay.
Yeah, Commissioner, we're still at the stage where it's like, should we do this? And so there's really 2 common ways of operating these sort of things that are neighboring harbors and other places that have RP. It's either third party or it's like an on-site host. And so we can choose between either of those, or we can experiment with either, but we can that would be under the operational determinations once we even decide if we're going to do this or not.
And yeah, I can see why there would be concerns, the parking revenue is pretty good and you're going to be losing 127 parking spaces, and those are needed and used and almost always full when I go down there. I'm also wondering, you have some gross expectations here, but have we gone to any of these other parks to look to see, is there I'm not necessarily seeing a path to revenue in this presentation, but do we think there is?
Chair Stanwyck, Commissioner Cohen, I do believe that there is a path to revenue. I think it really depends on what we are able and comfortable setting as a daily price. I think it's hard to know without any data specifically about what demand could be like for a space like this, RV camping. I think anecdotally, I always see the Rincon Parkway campsites are full.
Sure.
So it's difficult to say with certainty, but I think there is a path, depending on what we're able to set that price at, where this could be a positive revenue generating venture.
Okay. And then lastly, I did notice in the presentation, or when I read through it, that this would be revenue that would be, from what it looks like, going back into the Harbor Enterprise Fund. And my understanding from the exercise that the city led was that they were looking more for city funding. It probably is questionable. Is this part of the city? Is this part of the waterfront? I don't know. But has there been talk of how that would shift if something like this happened, or would this be an enterprise fund venture?
This would be an enterprise fund venture for sure. City council has purview over us as well. The waterfront's a part of the city, but the intent would be that this revenue would remain within the waterfront.
Okay.
And Commissioner Cohen, to that point too, Natalia Glusak, our budget manager for the city, did bring that up as well during some of the finance committee hearings in relation to the fact that this would be revenue for the waterfront, which would, in theory, sort of help alleviate some of the burden from the general fund in having to potentially loan money to the waterfront, or if something like that were to come down the road. So they were thinking about that as part of this idea.
Okay. I guess I just feel like the city is really looking for revenue, and we have a lot of different avenues that we can, in the harbor. I don't know if it solves the immediate problem that they were trying to solve from the exercise, but.
No, but to Nico's point, we are also in need of revenue. You look at things like dredging and Stearns Wharf, and so those are things that council spoke openly about just a couple weeks ago, and that council would inevitably backstop the waterfront if there was no dredge funding or something like that. So at the end of the day, the waterfront is self-sustaining because we've been a successful enterprise, but if we're not, we are ultimately backstopped by the general fund. And so I think there's a co-benefit there of essentially us being a part of this exercise to generate revenue, which was kind of started this all. And so we were really just being responsive to council as a department within the city. And this is one of the items that rose to the top.
Thank you.
Commissioner Anderson.
Thanks, Nico. It's exciting to see this one pick up steam. I feel like we talk about it often. It's great to see something move what feels like fast sometimes. 2 questions. Do we know how often the parking lot is more than 50% full?
Chair Stanwyck, Commissioner Anderson, I can answer that question. Throughout the summer, primarily from actually springtime, like April through September, I would feel comfortable saying that the parking lot is filled primarily Saturdays and Sundays at 100% during peak hours between 11 in the morning and 3 p.m. During weekdays, generally it's about 60% occupancy. But again, it's weather driven. We're a function of the weather, so it will vary.
So, okay, that's helpful. And then the other one, when we're looking into software or option on how to actually manage it, I think something that offers demand pricing might be worth looking into. July 4th, I imagine, not that we're out there to price gouge, but I think you could, depending on the day, it might be worth charging more, having some variability in what you charge, are my only 2 points.
Yeah, and just to follow up, Commissioner Anderson, it was an astute observation. The estimate that we would lose exactly half of the parking revenue is the most conservative estimate, because in reality, if they'd just go park in the other half if there was availability. So it's very, very likely that we wouldn't lose half the revenue. We would lose some percentage of that revenue because they would still have a place to park.
Yeah, and just to touch on that, because I think that's a good point. Like I saw you guys use the 348,000 as being half exactly. And just a quick observation, I biked by this area yesterday at about like lunchtime, and it was about half full, but it was half full mostly near the skate park. So I don't think this is necessarily going to be like a zero-sum game, which I think will actually work in favor of this proposal. So that's just one observation I had, which I think is which is good, which will be helpful in terms of the revenue generation goal that we had originally. So great. Other questions, Commissioner Hymas?
Thank you. Yeah, I have 2 questions. So, well, one concern with just the placement of the potential RV park. We just got a presentation saying that our parking lots might disappear. Well, they will disappear in time. So it just seems like maybe a bad investment if in 20 years this will have to be taken away, and then, or just maybe the wrong location, maybe if it's put interior. And, but my question is, so my understanding is that Chase Palm Park, that lot specifically is a safe parking lot for, no, it's,
Commissioner Jaimes, it is the Garden Street parking lot right across the street where we have 5 clients during daytime and about 8 at night.
Across the street.
Across the street.
Got it. Okay, that was my concern. If it was a safe parking lot, then, yeah. So thank you for clarifying that.
And Commissioner Hines, with the sea level rise, obviously right on point. Like we don't want to necessarily be developing and doing things in that zone. This is pretty low impact, low infrastructure, and so this is easily something there that has no utilities, no major development investment, and so it is one of those things that you could get that revenue benefit, and if there is a change in the future, if we benefit from that revenue for 8 years or 10 years or 30 years, it's still beneficial revenue for the waterfront department, and it can go away pretty easily.
Thank you. Commissioner Nelson.
Nico, in terms of the location of this, did you look at the performance of all of our parking lots and say, here is the low performer, the one that we have the most problem filling most of the time, and therefore we would take a look at it? Or did we gravitate to the Chase Palm Park one because it's sort of remote from the rest of the operation? Question one. And then the second one is, does an alternative location eliminate the zoning problem? I'm just looking at all the obstacles you would have to go through, and it'd be nice if we could wipe some of those out. So does the zoning issue go away if you're not at Chase Palm Park? And secondarily, in this first question, which is how was location determined, and was the performance of all of our lots part of that determination?
Chair Stanwyck, Commissioner Nelson, in terms of how the location was chosen, I think during the discussions internally with parking staff, the logistics of the space was the most important aspect. So we looked at, the Ledbetter lot, we looked at Garden Street, and all of our various other lots. And I think the way that this lot is structured, sort of already split into these two kind of easily manageable spaces, sort of stood out, that made it the most logistically sound area for this project. So that's kind of what went into those discussions and consideration. And then to your second question related to zoning, I don't know how much that zoning issue in particular would affect other locations, other parking lots, but there is still the municipal code challenges that we would have to overcome. So we still would have to go and get a coastal development permit most likely, and we still would need to take an ordinance to council with some significant municipal code changes. So that wouldn't change depending on the lot that we go to.
Got it. Thank you.
And Commissioner Nelson, Mr. Lopez mentioned it, but a selection of the lot, we did a lot of analysis figuring out where the lowest impact would be. That Chase Palm lot is completely surrounded by city property. There's no hotel impacts, no resident impacts, so it's kind of like whereas you look at somewhere like Ledbetter or East Beach, you're going to be up against a lot more pushback potentially from neighbors. So that lot is fully surrounded by city. There's a park on the northern side. We own the parking lot on the other. So it's really the least impact as well.
I was just trying to worry about trying to achieve the cost-benefit ratio, so let's go for it. Zoning that's the hurdle for the performance of that park creates a higher number. So having to achieve half of 700,000, you only have to achieve half of 300,000 somewhere else. If you look at it, anyway, all here.
Commissioner McRae?
Yes, Mr. Lopez, my sense is that there's some seasonality to that RV camping demand, and not only is there seasonality, but that seasonality is actually opposite the seasonality of the usual parking demand down there. Was there some consideration of potentially doing the number of RV spots, having that vary with the demand such that they're more available in the wintertime when the demand is higher? That's what my sense is. And then those might convert back to regular parking during the more summer, early fall months when the regular single car parking is more in demand?
Chair Stanwyck, Commissioner McCray, we're exploring all possible options. I think the idea right now for the pilot project is to make sure that it remains consistent throughout the year. I think there's definitely a cost associated with striping and restriping back into normal spaces versus RV spaces. So I think the idea for at least the short term in the pilot project is to just maintain it throughout the year.
All right, thank you. Do we have public comment on this, or do you know from?
I don't have any speaker slips submitted, Chair Stanwyck.
Okay.
I don't know. Let me double check online.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was just making sure if anybody from the public online who's viewing wants to comment on this real quick. I don't think we have any other questions or comments from the commission here. Oh, there is, okay.
So
Great.
Chair Stanwyck, there is one hand raised, Harrison Hale.
Harrison Hale, okay. Yep, Mr. Hale, yep, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, Chair Stanwyck and commissioners. I'm just, my concern is, I'm a live aboard in the harbor, and I know that sometimes on the weekend or on holidays, I have a hard time finding parking, even in the harbor lot. You know, if the weather is real nice, and there's a lot of tourists or residents who are coming down to the harbor to enjoy the beach. And I have some concerns about how the removal of so many parking spaces in the Garden Street lot could, the impact that it'll have on the parking in general in that area. I could see that placing more of a demand on parking in the harbor lot, as people need to go over there to find parking to access the beach and the coast. And as well as the beach area in the area of the Garden Street area. But also there's, you know, all those, the Funk Zone is really busy on holidays and weekends as well. So with the loss of that parking, I just think it might create a parking mess and some ripple effects in the community, in that neighborhood down there, and even over by the harbor lot or East Beach, that would be unfortunate. So thanks for considering my comments.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hale, for the public comment. We appreciate it. And actually, that does bring up a good question I have, because you know, parking during the summer is sometimes a problem, but if I'm correct, we do have a agreement with the City College, is that right, during the summer for for basically free parking if you have a waterfront pass, is that right? Like I think like Memorial Day to Labor Day, is that right?
Chair Stanwyck, that is correct. Yeah, from Memorial to Labor Day, the annual waterfront parking permits are valid in the 2 lower City College parking lots adjacent to the stadium.
Okay, so the one by the City College track.
The track, correct.
That
And
one,
the one
okay.
right, the big one, and the one right across the street.
Okay, and you don't need to get anything from the kiosk, you just need a waterfront pass, and then you're set pretty much, is that right?
That's right, that's correct.
Okay, no, that's good to know, and yeah, I'm sure that's good news to the public then on those instances. Great. Any other questions from the commission or any other comments on this item? Okay, well, you know, this is something that was brought to us by City Council. It's an idea that they had, and you know, we have this proposal moving forward. So in this instance, I think probably a motion or a motion to move this forward by the Harbor Commission would probably be in order here at this point.
So moved.
Great, we have a motion and a second for this item. I'm going to reread the recommendation. The recommendation that the Harbor Commission receive a presentation on Waterfront Department's progress in creating a pilot project to install a recreational vehicle campsite in existing waterfront parking lots. We have a motion and we have a second. Would anybody like to speak to the motion? I believe Commissioner Cohen, would you like to speak towards this motion?
Yeah, I just want to say, I'm not ready to give an endorsement on this project yet, so I just want to have that conversation. I just am not sure that I think that we would have to have some more outreach to stakeholders. I'm concerned about the loss of 127 parking spaces, and I'm not really seeing a clear path yet to revenue. For that reason, I will be voting no.
Okay. Commissioner McCray, would you like to speak on behalf of this motion as well?
Yeah, I'm just unclear then. We are just supporting continued exploration into the potential at this point? That's the motion, right? That's my motion?
Yes, that's correct. I believe during the presentation, we would still need a permit to move any of this forward, right? And then, just to be clear, that would come back to the commission before we were to essentially break ground on this project. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there'd be a lot of public outreach, and again, this is just like step one. Should we keep looking at this?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. So the motion is just to keep Harbor looking at this? Is that?
The motion would be up to the Harbor Commission. We didn't necessarily request a motion, but it is nice to have some consolidated expression to pass to council that Harbor Commission is either supportive with the direction we're going or not.
That was my intent in making the motion, and I think I got clarity that that is in fact the case.
That's how I interpret it as well. Yeah.
Same here.
Can I ask that perhaps we have either a commissioner that's involved in the process, or that there be more commission involvement with staff in this? Is that?
We can bring this back to you at any interval you'd like.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's the intent. This is just more to move this forward in terms of an idea in response to what City Council has kind of tasked us with. And I believe we do have did you have any questions, or did you still unclear?
So yep. I just don't know why I just don't know why we would need a motion for that. It's just to show support.
It's show support and confidence.
Okay,
yep.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Yep. With that, we do have a motion and we do have a second. Mr. Lopez, could we have a vote on this?
Yes, and this is a motion, I believe, by Commissioner McCray, seconded by Commissioner Nelson. Is that correct?
Yep.
Great.
That is correct.
That is correct.
Great. As described by Commissioner McCray. Commissioner Hymas.
No.
Commissioner McCray.
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson.
Yes.
Commissioner Stedman.
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen.
I'm going to vote yes, but I do have some concerns.
Chair Stanwyck.
Yes.
Sorry. And that motion passes with Commissioner Hymas dissenting.
Okay, thank you all. We move on to item number 4 of new business. Review tenant selection of upper level restaurant space located at 113 Harbor Way, number 180, upstairs, previously occupied by Anchor Rose. Mr. Lopez, can you please read the recommendation for us for item number 4?
Yes, this is item 4, recommendation that Harbor Commission review the result of the request for proposal and recommend that the city negotiate a lease with On the Land LLC, DBA Harbor Tavern for the 3,527 square foot restaurant space located at 113 Harbor Way upstairs.
Great, thank you. We'll turn it over to the waterfront.
Good evening, Chair Stanwyck, Commissioners, and members of the public. My name is Cesar Barrios, Waterfront Business Manager, and today I will provide a review of the request for proposal, RFP, for the lease space located at 113 Harbor Way. This is the upstairs restaurant space. Last month, I was here for the downstairs. Now we're discussing the upstairs. For some background, after 4 years in business, the Anchor Rose restaurant that occupies this location closes doors on December 31st of 2025 after notifying the department that they would not be extending their lease agreement beyond 2025. In light of the closure, a request for proposal was issued in order to find a new tenant to occupy the space. As part of this process, the RFP was released on December 12th, 2025. On this instance, the deadline for the interested parties was January 7th of 26. However, by this deadline, only one proposal was received, and subsequently, the Waterfront Department staff and the Harbor Commission's RFP work group determined it would be prudent to reopen this RFP, especially since at that time we had only one proposal and it gained a lot of media attention, both social media and local news on TV, and we received a lot of requests. A lot of interested parties contacting the department wanting to learn more about this space. So we reopened it on January 21st. We extended it to February 27th. Waterfront staff had several phone discussions, on-site meetings with businesses or business owners interested in looking at the space. On top of that, the advertising of the available space was included in the Waterfront website, loopnet.com, Craigslist, and also we posted the flyer in the building and also at all the marina gates to ensure that the word was getting out, considering that we only got one request for the first go-around. So even though there were several inquiries, as I mentioned, we only received one proposal by the deadline, and that proposal was received. It was presented by On the Land LLC, which will do business as the Harbor Tavern, the same company that applied on the first go-around on the December deadline. So following the review by Waterfront staff and the RFP work group, it was determined that the one proposal we further review and be recommended to the Harbor Commission to be considered to move forward to negotiate a lease. In addition, the proposal was reviewed by the Waterfront Director, who supports the proposal, it being forward to lease negotiations. With that, I will provide a brief overview of the key points of the proposal. In what we used to review it and come up with this decision. So we included and reviewed their business plan, management and applicant information, as well as their financial information. So the proposer presented the Harbor Tavern concept, inspired by classic American harbor restaurants and tavern-style dining rooms. Known for warmth, consistency, and strong sense of welcome. And this is all from their description and their business. It was very well put together. As part of their investment, they plan to invest approximately $500,000 to $700,000 in tenant improvements to make the place look or to match their concept. And their projected performance is at approximately $3.5 million in revenue per year, and that will generate a substantial amount of revenue for the department as well. Average will be approximately $350,000. In regards to management, the proposal is led by Donald Cheek, Johnny Black, and Ben Goldhirsch, and two of them were here last month to introduce themselves. They were not able to be here today, but they are hospitality entrepreneurs with experience in the restaurant ownership and business, advisory work. They have a very diverse portfolio as far as what the three individuals possess, and then they have a significant portfolio in hospitality investments. And then in regards to their financial information, Detailed creative references will be provided once we start going through this process. A lot of the financials are kept confidential through this process, so normally we don't discuss these items through a public forum, but it's something that the Waterfront Department and the RFP work group gets to review to make this determination. It's also good to point out that this LLC individuals are not involved in any litigation currently with the city or any other individual. And they have provided the financial validity to, and have the ability to enter into a commercial lease with the Waterfront City of Santa Barbara. So if the Harbor Commission agrees with the Waterfront Department's recommendation, staff will begin negotiations with On the Land LLC and bring a draft lease agreement back to the Harbor Commission for review and recommendation to the City Council to review and approve. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Barrios. Questions from the commission, Commissioner Anderson.
I'm so sorry I missed the first part of the presentation. We only received one for the upstairs, and so the sushi or the Japanese restaurant is for the downstairs. This is the only one we got.
Commissioner Anderson, that's correct,
That's
yes.
correct.
So for the first go-around, it was the same applicants applied for, they were the only applicants for this space. Downstairs was Corazon Cocina and Kaijo Japanese
Okay.
restaurant.
I guess my first thought is like, is it any different than, it feels very similar to the Anchor Rose. It's like a seafood themed spot that, I mean, I haven't seen photos, I haven't seen the RFP, but like, are the owners, do they live in Santa Barbara? Do they know the harbor well?
They seem to. There was a pretty robust outline of attached to the
Yeah.
staff report that shows their images and renderings of what the restaurant would look like. They came up with an entire menu, price points for kind of lunch, dinner. The concept looks great. You know, if they can execute on it, that's always the question. So I think there's a lot of backing there. They've got a pretty unique ownership group that has a lot of experience with essentially developing places into enjoyable, good-looking atmosphere type things. So internally, we feel that they're a good candidate.
Okay.
And ultimately, with the alternative,
At least they're going to be putting something into it. Yeah. No, I hear you. I'm surprised after all the press that, I mean, I'm sure you guys were surprised too. Everyone was saying they didn't know about it, and no one came in on top with any other ideas, huh? Did you get, I guess, is the upstairs scene is less, supposedly the scene, is it a bigger footprint, or why do you think you received only one for upstairs and multiple for downstairs?
I think Commissioner Cohen made a good point last meeting. There's lots of vacancies in town. There's lots of spaces that are looking for this sort of thing. We are unique in the harbor. There is kind of an adage that it's harder to draw people upstairs. I think that scares some people away. I'm not a restaurant owner and investor, but it takes a lot to get those kind of things off the ground, as you would know. And so it's hard to speak exactly why there wasn't dozens and dozens of people interested in starting a restaurant there, but that's the market.
Okay.
And Commissioner Anderson, just to add, I've had, and Angela Rodriguez, our analyst, has several meetings on site with this ownership group, and including their chef, looking at the kitchen, looking at all the spaces to ensure that their concept would work at this location, and they're very excited to move forward if the commission and council gives it the okay.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, and for the Harbor Commission and the public, I think it is good to review their proposal. It sheds a lot of light on essentially the feel and what they are proposing and what the menu and look would be like. I think it would be a good fit.
Great.
Commissioner Sedman.
Thank you. Caesar, what is the square footage for Brophy's? Roughly.
About 1,800 square feet approximately.
So about half the size of this space that's going to be developed. And then secondly, Commissioner Anderson raised a question about whether or not these guys are local. Is Donald Cheek the proprietor of the Imperial Room in Goleta?
Commissioner Stedman, he did not include that in his portfolio, but he does live on the Mesa, so he's a local resident. And I believe his two partners are involved in local businesses as well. A lot of it was described in their proposal. That was part of the attachment.
Got it. Thanks.
Commissioner Nelson?
I just want to your comment, I thought the Anchor Rose was not an inviting place to go. I mean, when I got there, it wasn't a comfortable spot. And I really got the feeling from looking at the RFP that they were going to create something different, much different than Anchor Rose. In fact, the Wall Street Journal had an article on this weekend about sort of a comeback of the tavern sort of project. It's warm, it's intimate, the food's really good, it's dark as opposed to what was there. I don't know, when was the last time you were there? It's just, I don't know, it wasn't really a place that I wanted to spend, the afternoon there. It's just, anyway, so I think this guy really, this proposal is a strong one. It's just, what I worry about is we're only getting one. And so I think these guys made a good job.
Well, that's good to hear. I admittedly, I got stuck up on the other parts of the.
And we ought to show you the
Yeah.
RFP because it is a good one.
Yeah, it's there for me. I think I just got derailed on the other agenda items. But I'm glad you guys spent some time on it. I think, I'm glad you guys feel like it's a good fit.
Yep.
Commissioner McCray?
Yes, I'm ready to offer a motion. I am strongly in favor of any restaurant that will take me as I am today, or wearing my deck boots and shorts and a T-shirt equally. And I heartily recommend that the city negotiate a lease with the On the Land LLC, DBA Harbor Tavern for the site.
I second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Would anyone like to speak towards that motion? Okay, Mr. Lopez, we could have a vote, please.
Yes, and this is a motion by Commissioner McCray, seconded by Vice Chair Stedman. Commissioner McCray.
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson.
Aye.
Commissioner Stedman.
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen.
Yes.
Commissioner Hymas.
Yes.
Chair Stanowik.
Yes.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you. All right, we can move on to item number 5 of new business, the review tenant selection for small office space located at 113 Harbor Way, number 105. Mr. Lopez, can you please read the recommendation for us?
Yes, this is the recommendation for item 5, recommendation that Harbor Commission review the result of the request for proposal and recommend that City Council negotiate a lease with the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum for the 156 square foot office space located at 113 Harbor Way, number 105.
Thank you. All right, turn over to the waterfront. Mr. Barrios.
Thank you, Chair Stanowik. I bring to you and the commission a second review of requests proposal, this time for an office space located at 113 Harbor Way, also in the Waterfront Center. This one is located in the back towards the NOAA offices. So for some background, this office space consists of approximately 156 square feet. It was previously part of the Anchor Rose's lease space, and prior to that, there were NOAA offices. About 15 years ago, when part of the NOAA offices were moved to UCSB, and then at that point, these office spaces were incorporated into at that time, Chuck's Waterfront Grill and the Endless Summer, but they were under one ownership. So once the Anchor Rose terminated their lease, we did an analysis and determined that it would be best to remove this space to have it as a sole office space, considering that Chuck's Waterfront Grill, Chomp, and then Anchor Rose were not optimizing the use of the space. It was primarily being used for storage. With that, this office is located on the first floor. There's a rendering there on the hallway, and then on the left of their space, there's different flooring at this time, or the museum and Dark Coffee are installing their own flooring once, if this gets approved. Here's a view of the south side entrance of the Waterfront Center building. So you have the the main entrance where the museum and Dark Coffee and the soon-to-be Corazon Casino will be. But this is the side entrance to the space, which is normally where the folks that work at NOAA enter the building. So regarding the request for proposal process, the RFP opened on February 17th and it closed on March 10th. We marketed the space on the city's website, the Waterfront website, Craigslist, and also LoopNet. We also emailed individuals that were interested in this space. We had at least 4 individuals that were interested, in addition to the proposal we received. But ultimately, just as we did with the upstairs space, we only received 1 proposal from the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum for the dark coffee shop at the museum. That's the legal title of the dark coffee location in the Waterfront Center currently, and which that coffee shop is part of the lease space for the museum. So they oversee the lease. So as I mentioned, although we received the 1 proposal, just as the previous RFP, we include key points to review: the business plan, management, applicant information, and their financial information. Being submitted by the Maritime Museum, they emphasize that the museum and Dark Coffee will continue to promote the museum's mission to create excellent exhibits and educational programs that celebrate the Santa Barbara Channel and illustrate their rich connections to the sea. That's the mission, that's the written mission of the museum. The plan for this office is to support Dark Coffee at the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum, which operates the museum's lease space, as mentioned, and they've been at this location for just I believe 2 years almost. Dark Coffee will use the space for administrative purposes and also for dry storage and some refrigeration of their products. In regards to the management, the museum, it's a private nonprofit 501c3. Dean Noble is their new executive director, and he, as well as the museum corporate officers, oversee the lease for Dark Coffee and also will oversee the lease to this office space. While Dark Coffee's owner, Mr. David Dart, would oversee direct operations of the office space. And just to point out, Mr. David Dart is here with us here tonight. In regards to financial information, the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum holds a 96% score from the charity Navigator. This rating indicates very high level donor confidence. It's above average type of score for a nonprofit. Also, they provided the financial validity of their ability to fulfill the obligations to enter into the commercial lease, and also being an existing tenant of the Waterfront Center. With that, if the Harbor Commission agrees with the Waterfront Department's recommendation, we will begin negotiations with the museum, draft a lease, then bring it back to you, and subsequently bring it to City Council for approval. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barrios. Any questions from the commission on this item? I don't see any questions. Mr. Lopez, do we have any public speakers submitted?
Chair Stanwyck, there are no hands raised and no speakers submitted for this item.
Great. With that, a motion be in order for this item. Oh, Commissioner Cohn, you have a question?
I just was going to make a motion to push
perfect.
this forward.
We have a motion to move forward. Do we have a second?
Second.
With second from Commissioner Sedman. Mr. Lopez, we are ready for a vote on that?
Yes, and this is a motion by Commissioner Cohen, seconded by Vice Chair Stedman, to move forward with staff negotiation, staff recommendation. Commissioner Nelson?
Yes.
Commissioner Stedman?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Hymas?
Yes.
Commissioner McCray?
Yes.
And Chair Stanwyck?
Yes.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. All right, that concludes new business. Item number 6, as you all know, we moved that to the beginning of new business. We can move on to the department update. Item number 7, the harbor operations update and the commercial fishing slip lottery update.
All right, good evening, Chair Stanwyck, Harbor Commissioners, members of the public. I am Harbor Operations Manager Nathan Aldridge, and to close our meeting this evening, I will give a brief presentation on this evening's Harbor Operations report. And for my first and only slide, starting next week, the waterfront will begin accepting, starting this week, the waterfront will begin accepting applications for an upcoming commercial fishing slip lottery to assign a 30-foot designated commercial fishing slip. The application period opens today and will run for 2 weeks until April 2nd. All applicants for this must be designated commercial fishermen to qualify for this lottery, which means they must have a commercial fishing permit, have a registered commercial fishing vessel, and produced $15,000 in landings from commercial fishing in the past 2 years. The lottery will be conducted here at next month's Harbor Commission meeting by the Harbor Commission Chair, who will draw a maximum of 3 names. The slip will be offered to each of these names in order until accepted by a qualified applicant. And if the slip offer is declined, or if no selected applicants meet the requirements of a qualified commercial fisherman, the slip will be held in Waterfront Department's visitor inventory for a period of 6 months. And then after the 6 months, the waterfront may hold another commercial fishing slip lottery, and so on and so forth. The photograph right there is an image of the current slip space, which what we call Cabrillo Landing North, or was formerly known as the Cuda Dock. Once again, it's a 30-foot commercial fishing slip, and it's important to note that as you may remember from last year's ordinance change, this space, all of these slips are non-transferable. So that is being communicated in our messaging. This is posted around the marinas. It's up on our department's website as well. And so the key points to remember for this commercial fishing slip lottery is it is a designated commercial fishing slip for qualified designated commercial fishermen, and it is a non-transferable slip. And with that, I am happy to turn it back over to Chair Stanwyck for any comments or questions for the commission.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mr. Aldridge. Do you have any questions or comments from the commission on this item? Commissioner Hymas?
Yeah, I don't know if this is on topic, but what's the process for, are we allowed to rename or put suggestions for renaming the dock area instead of Cabrillo Landing to something else?
If it's appropriate in the meeting, of course. If that's something we want to agenda into a new item or a new motion, I'm not sure, Director Wilshire, if you want to embed that in here.
Yeah, I mean, officially, this wasn't really an action item. We were just providing an update, so we didn't inform the public that we were going to be changing names or doing that. So if you'd like to see that on our next agenda, I can bring that forth as an item.
Sure, yeah, I wasn't aware that they had names, so I was just, if it's possible to come up with different names, yeah.
Sure, yeah, of course.
Great. Any other questions? Oh, Vice Chair Sedman?
Yes. Can you, for the benefit of commissioners who weren't around the last time we had a lottery, can you sort of describe that process?
Yeah, certainly. Chair Stanwyck and Vice Chair Stedman, it can happen a number of ways depending upon the amount of applicants that we get. So if there are, in a a standard slip. If they say there are, dozens or hundreds of names, we could do something as simple as a random generator for numbers for all the people who have applied. For something like this, since the commercial fishing slip lottery is limited by the numbers in our code and in the policy to 3 maximum that will be drawn, once the applications are received by the department, they'll be put into a sealed folder. Generally, probably the easiest way to do that will be to assign each of them sort of a ticket like you get at a fair. Director Wilshire in his office has one of those little cages that you can spin a little bit, and then by pulling the first 3 names, if you get hopefully over those 3 names too, each ticket is assigned to an individual, and then we'll contact them, reach out to them, and if they're qualified, they'll be offered the slip, and then so on and so forth. So it's a little bit of fanfare, and it doesn't happen very often, so it should be interesting next month and something new for us to go through.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. I think it was during one of the virtual meetings we did it last time, so we did like some online number generator or something, so.
That's correct.
Yeah. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Mr. Aldrich, appreciate it. All right, we're moving on to commission and staff communications. Any staff communications this evening?
Chair Stanowicz, Commissioner, I'll keep it really brief, but today was a good day. I woke up and saw the Pacific Dredge bringing the sandpiper into the harbor. So for you all and the community, the dredge is here. They're mobilizing right now. They'll mobilize for the next few days. They're targeting early next week to start actually dredging and pumping sand, so Monday or Tuesday of next week, but they are on site.
It's great news. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Any other commission communications, Commissioner?
Yeah, I
Anderson?
went to the Santa Barbara Maritime Museum fundraiser earlier in the month, and I saw our old friend Kate Ford there. She passed along a hello to everyone, and it was a great function. It was great to just see so many people just genuinely excited about the ocean and what it offers, and if you have a chance to go next year, I'd recommend it.
What event was that?
Cool.
The Santa Barbara Maritime Museum is like a gala fundraiser, silent auction. Or sorry, the live auction and silent auction.
Got it.
It was a good time, yeah. Good time.
Any other, Commissioner McRae, do you have commission communication?
I do. I just have a quick question. If there was any news with respect to potentially seeing some more permanent funding at some time for harbor dredging?
Nothing has changed. You can pay attention at the federal level. So Congress and Senate is working on the FY26 work plan right now. They could release it any day, any week. And so that would be where our next bite at the apple would be if we're included in that FY26 funding plan. We are submitting earmark requests and funding requests right now to Congress and Senate for FY27 funds, which is the normal path that we usually do. So we submit applications to those Senate offices. So those are going in right now as well. But it's up to the federal machine as to when they get consensus and when those budgets get passed. So I'm watching it daily, but no news as of today.
Commissioner Sedman?
I thought the Admiral from the U.S. Coast Guard assured us that we were going to be top of mind going forward on this dredging issue.
Yeah, it was good to see it being discussed at that level. I think that was a really good sign that at a transportation and infrastructure meeting at the federal level, that Congressman Carbajal and the Admiral of the Coast Guard were talking about Santa Barbara specifically. So I don't want to say that any promises were made there, but it was nice to see that they were talking about it at that meeting.
Great update. Thanks.
Any other commissioners have any communications they want to share? All right, with that, we move on to adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.